Killing life, you see. You see.
TikTok time. I can't even do it, man. You got that stupid fake teardrop.
What do you mean fake tear?
Everyone CAP's new teardrop tattoo for his homies.
What's so funny?
Nothing, man. Everyone keeps ruining my my intros. AP is the best. AP is the best of wig wearers.
See,
Teardroppers.
yeah. The thing is, I also put it on with a permanent marker, so it's going to be hard to get off my face now. So, you know.
It's gonna be like faded for a couple days.
Yeah.
Or you have to scrub it real hard. So AP used a Sharpie to try and draw himself a cool teardrop. Not only does it not look like a teardrop at all, it's the wrong color. Doesn't look like a tear, and he did it with a Sharpie. So
well, it was worth it. It was worth a try.
Hey, so my intro was gonna be TikTok time to rock, and a bunch of other stuff. Hey.
Yes.
Hey, who are you guys talking about? He was converted in prison. Talking about you?
Yeah, me.
AP was living that thug life.
Yeah, I was in prison. I was there. I've been doing things for my people in the hood.
AP was running things down in cell block 4. AP was running the show in cell block 4.
What is cell block 4 for?
What?
What is 4 for?
Cell block 4. You got cell block 1, cell block 2, cell block 3, cell block 4. Cell block 4 was the subject of a movie called CB4.
Oh, I see.
Where Chris Rock's character, who came from a nice, good family, decided to become a gangsta rapper. And so he portrayed himself as from cell block 4.
Ah, I see.
The idea, AP, was that someone was pretending to be something that he wasn't.
Doesn't sound like me at all.
Know what I'm saying? Someone was pretending to be something that he wasn't. Hey, AP, so
yes.
You heard this Jordan Peterson. Oh, by the way, everyone, so we decided to go live like at the last second. Like it was already like 8 o'clock and stuff. And AP's like, hey, should we go live? Or, and I had just checked out this Jordan Peterson, Douglas Murray interview, which is awesome. Really, really good interview. Matter of fact, I forgot to add the link to the description. I'll have to do that later. But anyway, so Douglas Murray, apparently all this time, has been doing all kinds of research for a book. AP, you got the book there? You got the book?
Well, yeah, I got the book right here. So I got the book right here. It's right here in my hands, right here. It's not a very big book. It's relatively short. It's a good read.
Yeah, when I saw Douglas Murray had a new book out, I was like, I'm not going to read it because it's going to be 500 pages. But Jordan Peterson said it's not. It's a shorter book. What does Jordan Peterson mean by shorter? Check to the end.
What he means by shorter is it's nearly 200 pages. So it is 195 pages.
Oh, that's perfect. My favorite. Well, I actually like 80-page books and so on like that if they're just making one good point and getting right to the point. But as far as books that are going to go into detail, like the 150 to 200 page range is my target range. After that, once you go beyond that, especially if you go way beyond that, these guys got these books that are like 400 and 500 pages. I have to be really, 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 really interested in your topic or I'm not going near that thing.
To be very honest, the thing is, so I got the book as soon as it came out, and I also got the audiobook version as well. So I'm looking at it, and then I'm also listening to it while driving. And then I actually stopped listening to it at some point deliberately because I'm just because I had just this realization that for the last 2 years or so, the whole experience and witnessing of things that happened on October 7th, all that put me into an extremely dark place,
Yeah.
and have been battling with that for quite a while now.
Yeah, you became like pure evil, man.
Yeah, and then and right now, since I'm busy with just joining the church and learning all that, as he was explaining again what happened on October 7th, I thought, okay, I don't really want to hear that right now, so I put it on hold for a little bit to come back to it again. But it's typical Douglas Murray. It's very well written, very insightful, and people who don't know about the topic or who need a little bit more about the topic really need to have a look at this book.
We might check it out. We should check it out. Do a book review. That would be dope. We'll do a book of the month club. We'll do our book of the month club where we read a book and then discuss it like nerds. That'd be pretty funny.
A bunch of nerds.
Hey, here's the new book we're reading. Yay! On the topic of people's reading habits and the length of this book, Emily says, "We who wrestle with God." Don't go near "We who wrestle with God," then, D. Wood. Yep. That's what I was referring to with those massive books that I'm not going to read unless I really, 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 really have a good reason to. Because it's always in my head, hey, if by the time I read your 500 or 600 page book, I can read like 4 or 5 shorter books. So why wouldn't I read the 4 or 5 shorter books?
That's true.
Here we have 200 pages is low-key short for me, but I'm a fast reader. Yeah, I'm a slow reader. I'm a careful reader. I read it all. Yeah, I'm definitely on the slow end of the spectrum. See, Peter, he knows what I'm talking about. He says, does it come in a short version, 25 pages? That would be awesome. That would be awesome to just have everything condensed. But anyway, so super cool stuff in this interview. And the interview is going through some of what Douglas Murray covers in his new book, which is probably, judging from this interview, super base. See, I'm similar with interviews to where I am with books, right? But it'll be like, okay, who's going to sit down and watch like a 3 or 4 hour live stream, right? I'm like that. Like, there's no scenario. Scenario where I'm going to sit down. I'd have to be really, really, really interested in a live stream to be going, or an interview to be going through something that's like 3 hours, 4 hours. So Jordan Peterson's interview with Douglas Murray, it's about an hour and a half. But that's sort of the max. That's sort of the max where I'm just going to, okay, maybe I'll check this out. But anyway, if I watch an hour and a half interview, normally there's like a couple spots in there where like, oh, this is really good stuff. This is really good stuff. And then the rest is just, boring me out of my mind. Not this one. This was just awesome stuff. This is just totally awesome stuff. There are no weak points. There is no weakest link.
Yeah, I listened to a little bit of it, and it was very heavy, very, very heavy stuff that they were talking about, but it was very precise and heavy stuff. And honestly, a conversation that just doesn't happen anywhere on any other platform. This is like peak Jordan Peterson and Douglas Murray kind of stuff.
And it's a good time for both of them because they've both been blasted. And Peterson talks a little bit about that and so on. But these guys took the side against the group that started the October 7th attacks, and they have been paying a price for it ever since. And it's let me put it this way: they both lost a lot of allies along the way. Let me put it that way.
That's true,
because there are people who ended up on the opposite side of that issue. And it's interesting because now, after it's been a while, people have been ticked off at them both, talking tons of trash about them. And so they're kind of ticked off. You got a ticked off Douglas Murray and a ticked off Jordan Peterson discussing an increasingly insane world. So we're going to check that out. We'll take these first couple of super chats and we'll jump right into this video. Judas says, DJ Dong, AP's new performance name. DJ Dong. What's wrong with you guys? What are you laughing at? AP, are you okay? Why are you shaking? Oh, hi, David.
Oh yeah, I'm very, very okay. I'm very okay. So, yeah, some people are asking me what this is about, and I've already explained it. It's actually part of my conversion to Orthodox Christianity. It's when you become an Orthodox Christian, it comes with it to also change yourself. Um, what I very frequently heard and read as I'm on my path of joining Christianity is that um, for most, one has to you have to change yourself, and you have to make great changes in your life if you want to join the church and you want to become a Christian, you want to join the body of Christ and all that. So I thought, changes, I can do that. So I decided to get some wigs.
Changes. So now you all know part of AP's duties as a cat human are to change his image.
Yeah.
And so it's not something you all should be questioning when he comes in with all his different little outfits and stuff like that, because you would be calling into question his the entire Eastern Orthodox Church. Is that what you want to do? No. So
Yeah,
leave this
it is
man
part
alone.
of the Orthodox tradition to dress up like this.
Mm-hmm. So Ida says, AP, are you okay? Why are you shaking? Oh, hi, David. Then we have you. You should have announced that you were going to have the lead singer of the Counting Crows on here. Counting Crows, wasn't that like a million years ago? Are they still around? Who was that? Was that the Mr. Jones and Me? Was that those guys from like the 90s? Hold up. Counting Crows. Because there's the Counting Crows, the Black Crows, Counting Crows. Oh yeah, Mr. Jones. Yeah, Mr. Jones and Me. I don't even remember the lyrics. That was a long time ago. I'm gonna go to Subway and get a sandwich and eat it. Oh yeah. It doesn't matter. You can say anything with a song like that.
Yeah.
Cause I'm just sitting here doing a live stream with AP. Sha-na-na-na-na-na. AP's got a wig on. Cause it's AP and me talking about the interview.
It's actually Lil P now.
He was chilling here with Lil P and he's smoking a page of that Quran. Yeah, seems like you could just say anything to that song. Like that was all. See, you guys think that I just spent weeks working on those lyrics. That was improv. That's what you can do. If you get some good music in the background, some songs you just say anything. Doesn't even have to rhyme or anything.
Powerful.
You got that?
Yes.
Hi, D Wood, an apostate mole. I mean, prophet.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, they thought that was a mole, not a teardrop. It's a teardrop. It's a teardrop for his.
Like a mole.
It's a teardrop for his fallen homies.
Yeah.
AP looks like he scams teenagers by selling them oregano. Hey, I got the good stuff here, man. Homie's starting to look like the artist. NXCRE. I don't know who that is, but we've already pointed out it's XIV. XIV for the Pope, not NXCRE.
Powerful.
Boom, boom, room idea. With that Ugandan interviewer, he jumps in. Before I answer that, why are you gay? Talks about Zootman. I don't know who the interview. Do you know who this is? Ugandan interviewer?
No.
He already sounds pretty funny if he's jumping in going.
Oh yes. Of course. You don't know that?
No.
You don't know the meme of the guy going, "Why are you gay?"
No. Send me that though. It sounds funny.
You don't.
I will use that. That in response to pretty much anyone.
Well, why are you?
Dawood, have you tried Proust's à la restaurant du temps perdu? Purdue. So that means in search of lost time. In search of lost time. Wait a minute. Got Hatsoon sending me a link. Did Sajid post a stupid video today? Hold up. 1 second, guys. Did he post a... Hatun texted me, and he did it. Oh my goodness. Sajid, you poor.
3 reasons the Quran was preserved and the Bible was not. He said, gosh.
Sajid, why do you make it so easy, buddy? Why do you make it so easy for us? Oh, poor Sajid. So yeah, Hatun, he's still. You remember? So everyone should remember this. There was the several years ago. Now we all knew that even though Muslims are running around going, the Quran has been perfectly preserved, dot for dot, letter for letter. We all knew that was a lie. Why? Well, multiple ways. You get the same result no matter how you look at it. Me and Nabil back in the day when we were actually discussing this, Muslims like 2006, 2007, 2008, and so on. We're just relying on the Muslim sources. We're going to like Sahih Muslim and so on, which talks about entire chapters of the Quran being lost because Muslims hardened their hearts and they were too lazy to recite those chapters, and then they just were lost. We'd point out the Caliph Uthman having to burn all the Qurans to cover up differences. Over 200 verses came up missing just from Surah 33 because the only people who had the passages memorized died in battle, and Aisha's sheep ate the only copy. So we'd point out those kinds of things. Then you had the people who were focused on manuscripts. That was like Dan Brubaker and so on, but you had others before him who were comparing manuscripts and pointing out textual variants. Then you had the people who would focus on different Qurans in different parts of the world today, the different Qira'at and so on. So we all knew this was like just a flat out lie. But your average Muslim in your average mosque isn't listening to us. He's listening to his imam tell him perfect preservation right down to the letter. So if that guy hears all his life, perfect preservation, dot for dot, letter for letter, all his life, and then he hears us say, no, there were changes and so on, and there are differences, and who you listen to? You listen to your guy. You think we're lying. Okay. Well, eventually you had the holes in the narrative interview where Muhammad Hijab wanted to get to the bottom of this. He wanted to get to the bottom of this and show, no, the Quran has been perfectly preserved. And it was one of the most, possibly most damaging to the Dawah Muslim discussions ever. Because so they both posted this interview, then they started editing it, taking parts out, then they both deleted it because the comments were being flooded by this is destroying my confidence in Islam. They had built this up as the main argument for Islam, perfect preservation. It was a total lie. But after that interview, you think, okay, now at least the cat's out of the bag. They have to deal with the fact that the Quran has not been miraculously and perfectly preserved. Sajid comes out right after that and it's like, how dare you? You guys have no hikmah. You don't have the hikmah. I converted to Islam because of the perfect preservation, and now you're telling people it's not true. And it was clearly just, I really want to believe this, and I don't care what the evidence is. That's what it was like. This makes me feel good. This makes me feel superior in my religion. We've got a perfectly preserved book. It's just amazing. Here we are years later, and he's still clinging to it, apparently. We've got the preserved book. You live in fantasy land, dude.
It's even worse than you think. As you are speaking, I'm listening to the video of Sajid Lupim.
Yeah.
It's even worse than you think. It's worse than you think. This guy actually hasn't learned anything. What he's doing is he's going back and saying, in the first centuries of Christianity, the Christians were persecuted in the Roman Empire because they were preserving the true beliefs of monotheism that Jesus alayhi salam brought them. It was not until Emperor Constantine, who then called the Council of Nicaea, where the Nicene Creed was implemented, that the polytheistic beliefs, the corrupted Christian beliefs were introduced. Because up until then, of course, the monotheistic beliefs that the Christians, that the early followers of Jesus alayhi salam had, were troubling the Roman Empire. But Constantine, the emperor, had to somehow integrate this religion into the empire. So he called this council, and there they weeded out the monotheistic beliefs and introduced the current corruption of Christianity. This guy is repeating like 1990s propaganda.
Dawah script, right? Dude, I've been saying that when we've been going through, because he's been posting about the Islamic dilemma when we've been going through our stuff. This dude knows nothing except the Dawah script that he got in like 2008. He knows nothing, but he's still glued to it. Like all this stuff has happened to expose all these lies, all the Dawah lies about Christianity, all the Dawah lies about Islam. All the lies have been exposed, and he just keeps repeating them. He keeps repeating Dawah lies from 2008. But you're right. The Dawa lies from 2008 are the same as the Dawa lies from the 1990s and so on. And so, because it's sort of after that, it's after 2008 that you start getting YouTube and so on, where, I mean, YouTube existed, but as far as like people exposing that, that's kind of like starts, and that really takes off like after 2010, where all this stuff really gets exposed.
I want to respond to this right now. I want to make a video response to this right now.
AP. We could go live on your channel, get a couple more people on there. We could get some people who specialize in like early Christian theology and stuff like that. We could set it up and watch this, go through it live on Thursday on your channel, and just rip this dude to shreds. And really,
we shall do so. We shall do so. Because I mean, seriously, there might be some people who don't know what this is all about, because it's an old, stupid argument, completely washed up, ridiculous argument. But many people probably have heard it, which is that, the Council of Nicaea is actually the one that corrupted Christianity and so on. On the contrary, on the freaking contrary. So Sajid Libim here is actually trying to argue that the early Christians were totally like the Muslims, and then the Roman Empire is the one that created the fake Christianity that people follow today. And it's like, it couldn't be further from the truth. It's complete nonsense. We have the early beliefs of the Christians. We have them. We can access them. We have texts from the earliest Christians. We have texts in which the early Christians point out or list their beliefs. We know what the earliest Christians long before the Council of Nicaea believed. The beliefs were very, very much in line with Christianity in general, in Jesus as the Son of God, as the divine who came, took on flesh, died, was crucified, died, and rose again, and so on. A new covenant. All of these beliefs by far precede the Council of Nicaea. Yeah. This is such a ridiculously nonsensical argument.
It's idiotic. It's made for people who are completely ignorant. It's put forward by people who are completely ignorant, and it's made for people who are completely ignorant. Guys, anytime someone tells you that some doctrine was invented at the Council of Nicaea, or that the Council of Nicaea had anything to do with choosing books of the Bible, you are dealing with someone who is a complete moron or a total liar. You did have an important issue at the Council of Nicaea as far as Christian theology, because, as apparently Sajid is pointing out, the Christian church was being persecuted in its early centuries. And what that meant is, it doesn't mean, and they were all preaching Islam, and that's why they were being persecuted. No, as AP pointed out, we can trace all these beliefs back to the first century, to the first century of Christianity. But since Christians were being persecuted, they couldn't get together for big councils. They couldn't have Christians from all over the place get together, Christian leaders and theologians get together to discuss these things. So after Christianity becomes a legal religion, thanks to Constantine, then you can have everyone get together. And the people there, all of them, believe that Jesus is the Son of God. They had some differences about exactly what that means, so they get together to discuss it. And the vast majority of people were on one side of this issue. So they actually put it to a vote. But as far as this is when they're deciding, no, Sajid, show me any Christian group ever who didn't believe that Jesus is the Son of God. Show me one. Because you need that. You need there to be one. You need there to be one in the first century, the second century, third century, if you're saying this stuff is invented. You need that. Show me that. Show us that. No one at the Council of Nicaea denied that Jesus is the Son of God. So what are you doing here? And we can definitely trace that back. We can trace that right back to our first century text, Sajid. Oh, this is going to be embarrassingly terrible. Yeah, set it up for Thursday, AP. We will. It's just. Everyone is shocked by how terrible Sajid is, like beyond shocked. We all thought, because he was the one calling out the Dawa guys for their terrible behavior, that he's somehow like a step above them. His arguments are worse. He has the worst arguments. It is like someone who's just teleported out of 1990, who was only given like Ahmed D. nonsense, and then is just teleported from the 1990s to now, not realizing literally everything that they were saying back then has been completely exposed, and he just can't pry himself out of. What are you talking about? This is why I converted. If everything I was told is wrong, it means my entire conversion was based on lies, and I can't accept that, so I'll just keep repeating the lies. This is pathetic. But he sure is making it
pathetic.
It's really bad. Ida says, good. I was worried that AP doesn't feel well. course, he feels well. Look at his hair.
I feel amazing.
Yeah, feels better every day. Here in Norway, speaking out against Islam carries the extra burden of many folks associating being against Islam with terrorist Anders Behring Breivik. Yeah, that's why Breivik was stupid. I mean, he's stupid for like just massacring a bunch of people, obviously, but also like him thinking that this is going to turn people to his side when he becomes the example. He becomes a source of why you're not allowed to criticize Islam. To this day, if you say, hey, Islam's got a problem here, they go, so you're supporting Anders Breivik? Bunch of idiotic nonsense. What do you mean? Orthodox Christians near me bought a mosque and turned it into a church. You heard this, AP?
That's pretty good. Where is that?
I don't know.
Where's that?
Van said it. You can check the comments. So Van, AP's asking where that is because that's pretty funny. Around 2022, I came across a JP clip. It was him talking about the crucifixion. He planted seeds that would change my perspective. That's cool. Perfect. Use the Sajid photo I sent for next video review, lol. Oh, yeah, we can. Did you send that to AP too? He sent us a Sajid pic. Can you go through the messages you got from El Zut? No. AP looks like he wears organic deodorant. Let's see. Abraham says, had a debate with a Lebanese priest. He stated that we are allowed to condemn Israel for waging war because they in God's plan. But we must not condemn Islamists because they are not God's people. What buffoonery is this? Wait a minute. We are allowed to condemn Israel because they're in God's plan, but we can't condemn Islamists because they're not God's people. What buffoonery is this? That sounds like some buffoonery. Yes.
What?
You're saying you could. I've heard this before as far as when people say, not this, but a sort of parallel to this. I've heard people say, so they say, hey, you shouldn't be so mean when you're rebuking Muhammad, and you shouldn't make fun of Muhammad, and you shouldn't mock Muhammad. And I point out, you can point out all kinds of passages in the Bible where people are making fun of false prophets or condemning false prophets and false teachers and so on. But even Jesus, you've got Jesus just brutally mocking the scribes and Pharisees for being hypocrites and so on. And it was flat out mockery when he says, you strain out a gnat, but swallow a camel. It's because they would, if they wanted to drink some water, they'd put a cloth over top of it and filter it through the cloth just to make sure they weren't accidentally swallowing a gnat, which would have been the smallest of unclean creatures that they're familiar with. And he's saying, hey, you do that, but you're swallowing a camel, meaning you're committing all this hypocrisy and injustice and so on. But anyway, that's mockery. Ha! You dopes, you strain out a gnat, but you swallow a camel. Those kinds of things. So I point that out, and what they say is, but he's talking to Jews, you're talking to Muslims. So you can say that to Jews, you can't say that to Muslims. And so apparently Abraham's pointing out there's someone saying this, you can condemn Israel for waging war because they're Jews, but you can't condemn jihadis because they're not. Which is some silly reasoning. But this is, Abraham, if you asked the guy why that is, I'm sure it would be Book of Trust Me, Bro. Regarding the earlier super chat, this is in Dearborn. Oh, AP, that's in Dearborn.
What? I want to go there, man.
Oh yeah. Hey, Van.
We should go there.
Van. We would be interested in going. We don't. Now, here's the thing. We don't know if you want any attention drawn to that because you are in Islam Central right there. But we wouldn't mind checking out this freshly converted ex-mosque church. You could call it the ex-Muslim church, the church of the ex-Muslim. Hey, you should start bringing in as many Muslims as possible to convert, and then they'll be in a converted mosque as converts. The whole church of ex-Muslims. How based would that be, AB?
Very super based. So I have this text here, famous, the Apostolic Fathers. A new translation with texts of the early church fathers and so on. It has various early texts. What it does have here is the early writings, early letters by Clement, the Pope, then by Ignatius, his epistles to the Ephesians, Magnesians, and so on. These are directly from the 1st century or end of 1st century, beginning of 2nd century. So we just talked about Sergeant Lippman and how he claims that the early Christians were basically monotheists, and in his sense, monotheists, they were just like Muslims, and they were just following the true teachings of Jesus, of just believing in one Allah, and that's it. And then later on, it was at the Council of Nicaea that they invented bad stuff. These are the earliest texts of the Church Fathers, who were the prominent people that the early Christians went to and looked at from the year 90 to the year 100 to the year 110 and so on, who directly here in these early epistles write about Jesus as the Son of God and as God, and repeatedly say through our Lord Jesus Christ and so on. This is just a little bit of drink, just a little bit of. I'm saying drinking because somebody said Sergeant drinks too much. A little bit of,
Sergeant,
a little bit of
drunk?
reading, a little bit of reading, just tiny little bit of reading. Like you open one of these epistles, it's like a tiny little bit amount of text. A tiny little bit of reading shows you that this guy knows nothing and talks complete garbage. But Muslims believe this kind of stuff. They think the early Christians were just like Muslims, and later on Christians corrupt. No, the earliest Christians believed what Christians today believe.
And you're pointing out, but Muslims will still believe this stuff that's spouted by people like Sajid. Look how easy it is getting to expose them, though. It's not like back in the day where it was hard and took years. Now you can just instantly just pull up what they said, expose the idiotic nonsense, and they'll still have 2,000 people watching him, but way more people watch and go, wow, this is dumb. And Sajid, have to point out, bro, Dawah is getting the reputation as being nothing but complete, deceptive, idiotic nonsense for gullible people. That's the reputation it's getting, and you're helping it. Instead of showing, no, Dawah can be super smart and based, you're like, oh, let me double down on the stupid, idiotic nonsense that's all deceptive. Good. Keep it up.
The
Keep it up.
Christians were based. They were Muslim. They were based Muslims. But then later on, the later Christians and the Emperor Constantine, they came along and corrupted the Christianity and turned it into something perverted.
By the way, isn't that funny? Because if you go to like the Yusuf Ali Quran, it's got his commentary. He actually says that the fulfillment of Surah 61, verse 14, which says that Allah aided the true followers of Jesus until they became uppermost, this applies to Christianity taking over the Roman Empire. AP, the Christianity that took over the Roman Empire, that permeated the Roman Empire, did they believe in the Trinity and that Jesus is the Son of God? And did they believe in the writings of Paul? And, really? They believed in all the things that...
Absolutely.
Interesting. So according to Sajid, Allah helped the wrong people. Matter of fact, I don't know why I'm not making like short videos on this, because, we'll do long live streams and stuff. Sometimes I'll make short videos going through, but like points like that are extremely easy. You just take the clip of him saying something and then pull up. Oh, okay. So according to Sajid, the bad deceivers, they took over. They became uppermost in Christianity. Okay. Allah says he helped the true followers become uppermost. So according to Sajid, Allah helped the wrong people. Very easy points to make, guys.
Actually, the real truth is that
This is the truth.
That Muhammad himself was actually a Christian. So Muhammad himself was actually a Christian. He actually believed fully in Jesus and was following the writings of Paul and so on. He was following the New Testament. It was not until later on the people of Al-Zut came along and corrupted what Muhammad was actually teaching and saying, and turned him into a pervert. So Muslims therefore believe in a completely corrupted version of who Muhammad was, because the people of Al-Zut came and corrupted it.
That's true. That's true. All right, Sajid, you brought this on yourself. We're going to start talking about how the people of Al-Zut corrupted your sources. You're starting this, Sajid. We weren't going here. It's just you're making this rule that, hey, you could just make up any idiotic nonsense you want without a source to back you up, and you could just say it. You could just say everything he's saying. Everything he's saying in every video is just him making stuff up or quoting people who made stuff up, and he doesn't care. And so, fine, Sajid, if that's what you're going to want to, that's what you're going to want to say, then fine, we'll do that too. And you can't complain. You can't complain because then you'd be A hypocrite. Interesting.
Hypocrite.
A hypocrite. Nature, human divine of Jesus wasn't really settled until the Council of Chalcedon forfeit. Quit trying to educate us on Christianity. Arctic-based. Call himself based. You gave yourself that name. AP's shelf is messing with my OCD. The books on both shelves need to have the same orientation. Yes, AP. You need to design your background to be as comforting as possible to Shane Johnson. So when you decide something, you have to say,
You see what this here is?
what's that? Oh, yeah. I remember that. I know that book. That poor book. Poor
You
book.
see?
Poor book. And then we have Muhammad Got Zooted, the channel, with Mike Winger in the picture. Muhammad Got Zooted. And then Muhammad Got Zooted asks, if your kids became wingalings, what would you do? Well, fortunately, we've got the principle in Christianity that you can love the person but hate the sin. So I'd have to apply that and say I would still, I'd still love my children while hating their horrible, terrible ideas, namely wingalingism. Fortunately, my kids have spent their entire lives being immunized, basically, mentally immunized from falling into wingalingism.
I would kick them out and call the police.
Hey, what's this, AP? Happy 77th to Israel. I'm Yisrael Chai.
It's high, but
It's chai.
Is it?
Chai tea. What? They named chai tea after this, so what?
I guess the founding of Israel or something.
Is
That's
it?
it.
Was that today?
Not today. It was a while ago. Wasn't
Why is
it?
he saying
Oh no,
happy
no,
77th?
no, actually, it's not. Wait, is it tomorrow? I don't know. What day is today? It's today May
May
the
14th, 1948. That's tomorrow.
Okay,
so
yeah, it's tomorrow.
Arctic
It's tomorrow.
Arctic based is in the wrong part of the world.
That's true. Powerful.
Hey,
Arctic
you should post something. You should post something about that.
No.
You should post something about that. It's the 77th birthday.
No.
Okay. All right, we're ready to jump into this video. You've been
Yes.
talking way too long. All right, guys, we're
Yep.
going to check out this Peterson Murray interview. Super dope, super based, awesome stuff. We could even cover this in a couple live streams to make sure we get through all of it because it's dope.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Jordan.
I'm talking today to Douglas Murray, who just wrote this book on democracies and death cults, Israel and the future of civilization. That's
I
this.
haven't seen him.
We basically walk through the book chapter
So you're basically Jordan Peterson. Hey, AP, we can use the same reasoning that Muslims use to show that Jesus was a Muslim. They say, look, Jesus bowed down and prayed. Muslims bow down and pray. Therefore, Jesus was a Muslim. Now, that's a specific, it's called the fallacy of the undistributed middle. But following that exact same reasoning, Jordan Peterson has Douglas Murray's book. AP has Douglas Murray's book. Therefore, AP is Jordan Peterson.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, guys, everyone understand how stupid that reasoning is? It's one of the main arguments of Dawa, guys. That
Well,
level of stupidity.
I am Jordan Peterson.
That's the proof, and that's why AP has to. That's why Jordan has to wear this wig to cover up that he is, in fact, Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
See, you can tell by the voice. You got to look. You got to listen to the voice, not look in the eyes.
Yeah.
by chapter. It's a relatively short book, although it doesn't lack in intensity. What happened October 7th when Hamas invaded Israel? What I saw, Douglas's account of his sojourn through Israel in the aftermath of the catastrophe, how the world turned. We discussed the protests primarily originating on university campuses, much to their eternal shame. The disconnect, the fact that the propaganda exercise and what would you say, the zeitgeist of the West was such so that Israel was demonized almost immediately after the attack for daring to defend itself. And then Douglas's conclusion, from defeat into victory. And
By the way, wasn't that crazy? That's still crazy, like to this day. Like, it seemed like what? Like maybe 1 to 2 days where most people were like on Israel's side, and then right after that, right after the first 1 to 2 days, it was already like blasting away at Israel.
Yeah, it was insane. And the thing is that Jordan Peterson's audience also very much turned the other way and turned like anti-Israel and all that. And to be honest, this makes me kind of respect Jordan Peterson. There were many cases where I kind of called him out, where especially you talked a lot of trash about him, but the whole Israel thing happened, and he has been insisting from the very beginning until now, continuously, that Israel is in the right here, despite this taking a very, very big toll on his viewership and all that. You look at his channel after October 7th, after the twist, his viewership dropped massively and his popularity dropped massively among the right. Because there has been a new trend among the right of becoming anti-Israel. But he has been insistingly resisting that and insistingly saying that Israel is in the right, which is pretty based.
Little side note here, 16-year-old PC says, Apologetics Roadshow, you've proven so many times Muhammad is prophet. And then... I don't understand how you can't see it. All right, 16-year-old PC.
You're arguing with a 16-year-old now?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give you the opportunity. You said, I've proven many times that Muhammad is a prophet. You don't know how I can't see it. I'm going to pause right now. Give us your top way. I've proven that Muhammad is a prophet. And while you're coming up with something, I'll give you some reasons Muhammad is not a prophet. One, he contradicts everyone who came before him while constantly claiming to be in line with them, which is why his followers are forced to say that everyone is corrupted. He was a supreme example of a hypocrite, which wouldn't be a deal breaker as far as like prophets are concerned, because God can use some massively messed up people. But the Quran lays down Muhammad as the pattern of conduct for Muslims. So it's one thing to say, hey, God used this messed up dude to convey a message. It's something else to say, God gives his stamp of approval to this really messed up dude and his behavior as the pattern for other people. He would break his oaths even to his wives. So he took an oath to his wives that he would stop having sex with his slave girl, Mary the Copt, because he got caught in the bed of Hafsa, and they didn't like that. They knew he was allowed to have sex with his slave girls, but they didn't want it happening in their own beds, but he was doing it, and then he got caught for it. And then he swore an oath, I will not have sex with that woman ever again. I swear by the great God, Allah. Then he comes back and starts having sex with her again and says that he got a revelation. Allah told him to break his oath to Allah. So you've got that. You've got his relationship with Aisha, had sex with a 9-year-old girl. So the guy had sex with a 9-year-old girl, and this is the pattern of conduct in Islam. He took the wife of his own adopted son after causing the divorce by lusting after her. His first impression of his revelations was that they were demonic. He thought he was demon-possessed. He had to go and find out from his wife and her cousin who weren't there and who didn't know what he encountered. And so he had to go to them. And they told him, no, you're a prophet. He got it from them. People who didn't know and were trying to keep him from jumping off a cliff because he was trying to jump off a cliff. Muhammad delivered the satanic verses, which according to the Bible, Old Testament, Deuteronomy 18:20, if someone delivers a revelation that doesn't come from God or speaks in the names of other gods, then he would be executed by Moses. And yet Muhammad was claiming to be in the same line of prophets as Moses, and Moses would have executed him. You got Muhammad thinking he was a victim of black magic, a magic spell that gave him delusional thoughts and false beliefs. The way he received his revelation sounds like something out of an exorcist film and not what we're familiar with in the Bible. So anyway, I could go on and on and on and on forever. But 16-year-old PC says, his cut aorta. How did he know exactly how he was going to die? Apologetics Roadshow. Okay.
You see?
So, guys, notice, what did I say? I said, give me your best example. Give me your best example of how I have shown that Muhammad is a true prophet. His best example, 16-year-old PC's best example was Muhammad's cut aorta. How did he know exactly how he was going to die?
That's a good point.
Yeah, 16-year-old PC. So for anyone who doesn't know the story, Muhammad received a revelation in the Quran. It's Surah 69, verses 44 to 46, where Allah says that if Muhammad were to fabricate a revelation, if he were to make things up, then Allah would sever his aorta. Muhammad later was dying, saying, I feel my aorta being severed. I feel my aorta being severed. And 16-year-old PC says, well, this proves that he's a prophet, because how else would he know how he's going to die? So he's granting that he died in the way he said he would die if he's a false prophet. And this makes him a true prophet. You all getting this? He died in exactly the way Allah said he would die if he's a false prophet. And 16-year-old PC says, this proves that he's a true prophet. I don't know if you're trolling at this point, because this is beyond terrible. You quoted something and granted its meaning. Most Muslims will say, no, that's not talking about the same thing. It's not talking about the same thing. It's not talking, there's nothing to do with that. And you're saying, no, this is actually a prophecy in the Quran about how Muhammad would die, and that he died in the way Allah said he would die if he's a false prophet, and that Allah confirming that he's a false prophet somehow makes him a true prophet. Interesting. That sort of reasoning would actually fall in line with what we've heard from the Dawah guys for many years now. Namely, that Allah always means the opposite of what he says. And so if he says, hey, this is how you show Muhammad's a false prophet, what he would really mean there is, this would show that Muhammad is a true prophet. Allah means the opposite of what he says. So, 16-year-old PC, if Allah always means the opposite of what he says, then in all the places where he confirms Muhammad as a prophet, he means the opposite. He means that Muhammad's a false prophet. And so thank you for that little demonstration of how absolutely insane Dawah is. You had your chance, 16-year-old PC. Quit running your mouth. I'll just block you. You're trying to distract everyone from the show. I gave you a chance. You failed miserably. You failed your God. You failed your prophet. You've helped expose Dawah as the joke that it is. Now, pay attention. Address the topic. Quit trying to distract people. Let's go.
Well, that's where the conversation got a little bit more theological, possibly, an inevitability when talking about the existence of good and evil. We discussed Douglas's observations that the Israelis have been very successful at pushing forward a truly pro-life, pro-abundance ethos, and the consequence for their thriving, for their resilience in the face of really insuperable opposition, and the meaning of that for hope, not only in Israel, but in the West in general, and a hope we most desperately need in these strangest of all times.
I have to say, especially UK, when I post videos, and I'll be like I did. Matter of fact, I posted a video this morning about this Candid with Lubna situation, explain how it's becoming Pakistan. People in the UK sound pretty hopeless right now. Like, we're done. We're done, and we have no idea what to do. And just imagine that situation. You see your country like turning into Pakistan all around you, and you're completely powerless because if you do anything, the government comes after you. That's anyway. I agree. Hope is needed. Hope is very important right now.
Join us for that. So, Mr. Murray, I read your book on democracies and death cults, Israel and the Future of Civilization. Yeah, it's a pretty rough read in like 5 different dimensions. It's brutal and unnerving and like terribly relevant, and not merely because of the situation in it.
What'd you say?
Why does he look so red nowadays?
Jordan Peterson?
Yeah.
I mean, that could be my editing software in theory, because I always click color correct and it could have corrected on something else. So in other words, he may be way whiter than this. We don't know.
Israel. So no. I think what we should do first.
You could look on the original and see if he is this.
No.
Is I'm going to ask you questions about each chapter. It's a short book. There's 5 chapters. It starts with what happened. Mm-hmm. And there's questions everyone has. How did the Israeli security forces miss this? How could something like this happen? What did happen? Who was responsible? So let's start by laying that out. What happened on October 7th?
Yeah, guys. So Jordan, I mean, he's asking what happened and stuff, but there was embedded in there an important issue, namely, why did the security forces fail? How did this even happen? And that's been an important objection ever since, that has led to all kinds of conspiracy theories, as in there's no way Israel could have been this open to an attack unless it was deliberate. In other words, they deliberately held everyone back and let this attack happen because they wanted to. That's the conspiracy theory. So Jordan's asking about that.
What happened was that about 4,000 or more terrorists invaded Israel in the early morning. The Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and other jihadist groups in Gaza started firing hundreds and hundreds of rockets at about 6:30 in the morning, almost exactly 6:30 in the morning. So air raid sirens went off across the country. But then something, and sadly that's kind of usual in Israel. It's quite common to have air raid sirens, particularly in the south, has been for 20 years.
Yeah.
What became clear was very unusual was that across multiple parts of the Gaza-Israel border, thousands of terrorists broke in. They broke down the fences, they went to the checkpoints where Gazan workers would come through each day and where aid lorries and indeed commerce occurred. They went to those crossings as well.
Hey, AP, that's already an important point, that it starts off with the warnings about the rockets firing. But they're so used to that it's not even a big deal anymore, right?
Yeah. I heard the same thing talking to many Israelis, including people who were there. We talked to somebody as well, somebody who was there at the party where nearly 400 people were killed. Where many of the people who survived that attack said that at first they started hearing sirens, warnings. And many of them looked up and looked around, and some initially ignored it, or just thought, "Okay, let's get ready. Let's go for one of the shelters around." That's it, because Israel lives like that the entire time for years. This is how Israel is. Israel was being constantly attacked, constantly under rocket fire. In the past, it was much worse. There were bombs. There were all kinds of different mass shootings. Israel solved that problem by building a wall to the West Bank and shut off the terrorism from there, and also separating completely from Gaza and building a huge gap between Gaza. After which, the situation turned more into just missiles every now and then that are fired, upon which you hear sirens and everyone seeks shelter. That's it. So Israelis are very, very much used to it, that you just get missiles fired at you. And the funny thing is, nowadays, there are lots of people who say, when you bring this up, say, "Oh, but what about Gaza? They're being bombed all the time." Well, they're being bombed right now because there is war. Prior to this, Israel was getting missiles fired at them all the time for years when there was no war, because this is how they have somehow agreed to live, with neighbors that are constantly engaged in terrorist activities, that don't want to have peace, that don't want to have diplomatic relations, that always insisted on simply fighting and firing rockets aimlessly. So that morning, people were expecting, "Oh, okay, this is another rocket alert. It's going to be over soon. Probably nothing's going to happen." But then things got really, really bad.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's like a kind of a boy who cried wolf situation. It's more serious than the boy crying wolf, because the rocket attacks are actually dangerous, but you have such confidence in your security system, the Iron Dome and so on, to take out these rockets that you think, very, 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 very tiny chance that anything's actually going to happen to me. We're totally used to this. So they hear the sirens all the time, which is, hey, there's an attack going on. And then on this day, October 7th, they hear the sirens going off because of the rockets being fired and so on. And what do you think? You think, I'm not in much danger. Everyone thinks, pretty normal situation here. So you look around, hey, do I see any rockets? Nah, so I'm probably okay. And as Douglas is pointing out, this time was different. They had thousands of people pouring through checkpoints, going on hang gliders and so on. So different situation. People weren't expecting or ready for this.
Attacked the soldiers, overwhelmed them in quite a lot of places. It was a religious holiday. It's the holiday of Simchat Torah, and so a lot of people were at home with their families. It was 50 years to the day since the Yom Kippur War, when Israel's Arab neighbors invaded in a surprise attack as well. So you might say, well, how come it's a surprise? That was one of the things, as soon as I got to Israel straight after the 7th, one of the things I was trying to find out was what the hell went wrong. Because the Israelis have always had, certainly since 1973, a sort of invulnerability. It's not true, of course, but they were seen to be invulnerable by many of their neighbors. Certainly
Impossible to catch by surprise.
impossible to catch by surprise. It's what I call the Fowlerization of Israel, the sort of idea that it's that eyes in the sky everywhere, nothing that can be done that could surprise them.
And I got that impression when I was there in whatever it was, 2018, 2019, 2020, somewhere in there. Anyway, I was there back then. And the guy who designed their fence system actually was showing us the fence system and so on. But this was for Jerusalem. This is for Jerusalem. It wasn't for like all Israel or the area between like Gaza and various kibbutzes and so on. But the fence for Israel, the fence around Jerusalem, between Jerusalem and the West Bank, it's this double fence system. And anything basically touches one fence, then security would be on it before you even got to the next fence. Security would be ready. They'd be ready to take you out very quickly. You go down to Gaza and so on, it's different. It's a different situation. You got a fence running down between it, and you have various checkpoints and so on. But they just weren't ready for thousands of people all storming the border that quickly. But yeah, anyway, if you had asked me after seeing their defense, just the fencing system and so on, some places you have walls and so on. If you had said, hey, what are the odds that like Gaza, some jihadis are going to get past this? But pretty darn slim. They were even explaining like like they're anticipating different ways that guys could circumvent this security. So one of their concerns is flying drones over the place. So he said that one of the security features that they're working on was a system where anytime a drone flies over that fence, a signal goes, reprograms the drone, and sends it right back to wherever it took off from. In other words, if you're trying to blow them up by sending a bomb across, it's going to send it right back at you. As soon as you go over top of the fence, it's going to send it right back and blow you up. So anyway, stuff like that. So I would have thought, no, there's no way this attack like this is going to succeed. And guess what? Lots of other people would have thought the same thing. No way this attack like this is going to succeed. What's that mean? It means you got nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case. Massive amounts of the security apparatus of Israel failed. Hamas were also very, very clever. They'd done a lot of reconnaissance, using, sadly, Gazan workers in Israel to do the reconnaissance, it has to be said, in the months and years ahead of the 7th. They knew how to take down things like communications. They knew how to take down the security apparatus at the border. And by the time that hundreds and then thousands of people were flooding into Israel, invading, they were going community by community through the south, village by village. They're called Kibbutz. They're small communities of sometimes a few hundred, sometimes 1,000 people. And these were peaceful communities, farming communities. And they started to go house by house through these communities, massacring the people inside.
AP,
Yes.
you've covered this many times before, but for any new people here, tell us about the people in these communities. Were these hardcore anti-Palestinian people in these various communities?
On the contrary, the people living in the kibbutzim, which is a very successful system of little town communities in Israel, they were set up in order to. So Israel, most of the land there was totally empty, and what the Israelis did in resettling the land was to build small communities where that are completely built on mutual trust and togetherness. They're basically like little compounds. They have a fence system. They have homes where everyone knows each other. Everyone who lives there is in contact with each other. They all have chat groups and visit each other on a regular basis and so on. But the thing is, many of these people are people who live on the outskirts of Gaza or close to the so-called Palestinian territories. And many of these people also happen to be often secular people and often very leftist and often very environmentalist and also pro-peace and pro-Palestine people.
But basically, what we would call hippies. These are hippie communes.
I would be more. I mean, the hippies are very dysfunctional people. Well, these
I don't
people
mean
are
in
like
the dysfunctional sense. I mean in the if you go back, a lot of them had the idea. Hey, just it sounds like something hippies would do, right? Let's start a community.
Yeah.
Let's start a community where we grow our own stuff and we all live together and we sing songs together and we just live in peace with everyone in the world and so on.
It's basically socialism, but it works because it's made for a small community, not for the entire nation. The entire nation is not meant to be that way. It is a small community that is in perfect harmony with each other and where everything works because it's a tiny community that is just completely built on everyone shares everything and everyone works together. We are all one small family that lives here and maintains this community. So that was the entire purpose there. And these were very often extremely hardworking, wonderful people, but many of these people were also dedicate much of their lives to helping the Palestinians. For example, many of the kibbutzim that were attacked, they had volunteers. They had people who would on a regular basis, drive over to the border of Gaza and get all kinds of demands from the Gazans, and then go back to buy them a bunch of stuff, take their kids and take them to hospitals, pay for all their needs, speak to the governments and advocate for their rights and so on. So these were the people who were on the front of fighting for the Gazans and their well-being and their caretaking and so on. And what happened to these people?
They got massacred.
Yes.
And
Hamas did not care. Gazans did not care. They were the first to be brutally murdered in their homes.
So, does it matter which side you're on ideologically? Just matters what side you're on of the fence. If you're on that side of the fence. Matter of fact, we heard that it didn't even matter if you're you didn't even have to be Jewish. You could be. Matter of fact, you could be Muslim. They were still coming to kill you.
Yeah.
They didn't care. You're on that side of the fence. You got to die. Interesting. Yeah. And then what did we hear a lot after the October 7th attack? We'll just take down the fence and everyone live together. Brilliant.
Lots of those people had to move away. Lots of those people had to be evacuated, and they don't live there anymore. Many people wanted to go back by all means, so many of them have been brought back again to live there. There's a constant resettling and so on. But many of those people who were so much pro-peace, pro-Palestine and so on, after October 7 had to face reality and turned around and are no longer like that. So, yeah.
Dumb move, Hamas.
Kidnapping as well. They came across, of course, because they managed to do the invasion not just by land, but by sea and also by air in hang gliders. They managed to come into the dance party, the Nova Party, where thousands of young people were dancing in the early morning. And there's a debate about whether or not the terrorists knew that they were going to get this really easy pickings of unarmed young people dancing in the morning. But whether it was luck or design, they managed to get to the party and came in on military jeeps and trucks and motorcycles and started massacring their way through the young people in the early hours of the morning. There were a lot of questions I asked about what went wrong on the Israeli side. And there's a lot to find out about, and some of the answers I think I've come to. But although many people in their homes who I spoke to in the hospitals and in the communities in the aftermath of the 7th said the same thing to me, the thing they said was that they'd told their children as they were hiding in the bomb shelters, as their homes were on fire and they could hear people at the door trying to break in. They said that they'd told their children, you know, don't worry, the army will be here in moments.
Mm-hmm. Dang. That's what you'd think, wouldn't it? That'd be what you think, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Everyone catch that? So they're hiding in these. They're in the shelters, and everywhere you go, there are safe rooms all over the place. There are safe rooms everywhere. And the safe rooms, it's interesting. Even in the big buildings, there are safe rooms that they're designed so that even if the building is being blown up and stuff, the safe rooms will remain intact. They're built into the structure in that way. So you think something goes wrong, run into the safe room. They got them everywhere. And so parents were in there with their kids in the safe room, and people are trying to smash down the doors and stuff like that. Because keep in mind, you know, you can get into a safe room. It just takes you a while. It will just take you a while. You can get into a safe room. They're in there and thinking, hey, don't worry. They're telling their kids, don't worry, kids. The military will come here. We'll be here in a second. That's what you would think. That's what you would think. And didn't work like that for everyone.
Didn't work because also while they were attacking the communities, other terrorists were also spreading out, attacking from multiple different directions and directly attacking military bases as well. So one community is in one of the communities and is going from door to door to massacre civilians. Mm-hmm. The others are spending their time at the party field and hunting down, capturing, or brutally massacring the civilian partygoers, while another group is going and fighting directly with the soldiers at the military base. Mm-hmm. So the soldiers are then suddenly on complete red alert all over the nation, trying to help specific military locations out, and can no longer go and handle the civilians that are being targeted. It all happened way too fast.
Yeah. So the idea is, if you're in a little community and all of a sudden some jihadis show up and start attacking, you think, well, there's a military base that's 5 miles from here, so it'll just be a matter of minutes before the military shows up to rescue us, because you don't know that it's thousands of guys. You don't know that it's thousands of people and that they are attacking a ton of different places. You think, a couple jihadis got over the fence and they're attacking us. No problem. The military will be here in a couple minutes. You don't know that military base they're hiding on the military base as well. Like the people on the military base are hiding as well, because they've got 10 people on this little military base because it's a holiday and so on. They got 10 people there and they've been attacked by 150 jihadis. And so you think the cavalry showing up within minutes, and they don't show up for hours and hours and hours. Rough stuff. And matter of fact, when we were there, we saw those safe rooms. They were just riddled with bullet holes.
Yeah.
These guys so they could get in. Rough stuff.
And it wasn't. But it didn't fail entirely. There were some army in the area who put up a very good fight. And some of the army managed to get down fast. Some elite units managed to get to the south swiftly, had very, very intense firefights. But one of the other things that happened was that there were a lot of people who I described, Arab, Druze, Jews, Israelis, who were what I call self-starters, just people who realized that everything was going wrong. The country had been invaded. It was war. And who, through some extraordinary mettle or insight or whatever, sometimes just information, somebody who happened to know somebody in one of the communities in the south who was saying, we're on fire, would just hurtle to the scene and save lives. And that's why I say that the morning of the 7th was a story of catastrophic evil from Hamas and Islamic Jihad, and indeed the Gazan civilians who came in to join in the raping and the stealing and the kidnapping. By the end of the day, 1,200 Israelis were dead, many, many more injured, and 250 taken hostage into Gaza.
The hostages. People forget about the hostages for some reason.
A proportion of population, if people were to extrapolate that out to America, it would be about 44,000 Americans killed in one day.
Well, the hostage situation is also...
And 10,000 Americans taken hostage.
Right.
That's by proportion of population, if you extrapolate it out. It would be 10.
What do you say, 44,000? So guys, it's 1,200 people, but Israel's a tiny, tiny country. And so 1,200 people is a certain portion of the population. If you were to keep the same proportion in America, he said it would be like 44,000 Americans being killed and 10,000 being taken hostage. Imagine a place like, let's say, like Mexico and stuff. Storms across the border. If you wanted a parallel situation, imagine Mexicans storming the border, or Canadians or something like that, storming the border, killing 44,000 people, taking 10,000 hostages, retreating back to Canada or Mexico or whatever, and most of the population trying to help you evade detection. What do you do in that situation? Well, apparently you're just supposed to do nothing, because if you go and try to get your people back, and if you wanted an actual parallel, imagine guys storm across the border of the U.S., kill 44,000 people, take 10,000 hostages, run and hide in a series of tunnels and so on. And these tunnels are underneath, schools and houses and hospitals and so on. And you're there and you're leaving the civilian population who are on your side, most of whom are on your side. And you have to go and try and get your people back in that sort of environment. That's what the situation would be. And what are you supposed to do? Apparently nothing, according to most people. You're just supposed to surrender instantly. You're supposed to surrender. If that happens to you, you're not supposed to go get your people back. You're supposed to surrender. That's what was required of Israel. Under no circumstances do you go fight and get your people back.
1,000 Americans being dragged out of their homes and taken into enemy territory by terrorists. But the story was, first of all, of the evils that Hamas committed that day. Secondly, in the suffering that they imposed. Secondly, of course, the failure of much of the security apparatus in Israel, from which lessons will have to be learned, and not just by Israel, but by her allies. But thirdly, as I say, it's also the story of extraordinary people rising to this terrible moment and doing unbelievably heroic things. I tell a lot of the stories of people, for instance, there's somebody who's become a friend called Nimrod, who hurtled south in his car. He had been in the army, was called back.
Hold up, there's still people named Nimrod? Did you hear that? He was talking about a dude named Nimrod.
He was.
That's a guy in the Bible, but I guess it's different over there. Here it's like an insult. It's like idiot. You say, shut up, Nimrod. Apparently it's still a name over there. That's interesting.
Powerful.
Base by his commander. But by that point, Nimrod was driving south, and he managed to pick up a gun on the way, a single revolver with, I think, 8 rounds of ammunition. Went through every military checkpoint and just, he said he didn't see a live Israeli till the early afternoon. But when he did, he fought and killed many terrorists.
Dang.
There are other people, like there was a young man at the party I mentioned.
Guy found a gun. Guy found a gun and went and drove down there and fought these guys.
Book, whose girlfriend I met, who had realized the situation, managed to get a car out of the party. The terrorists were massacring everyone as they came out by car. So they were shooting the cars, so then there was a log jam. But this young man managed to find a way out on another route And he took 4 or 5 young people in the car, drove them 30 minutes, dropped them off, came back, took another car full of young people, drove again, took them back. Every time they said to him, don't go back again, it's hell, it's death. But he kept doing it. And then the last time he did it, he was killed.
You hear that? It is healthy to focus on good things in the midst of really messed up stuff going on. Like, hey, look at all this messed up stuff going on. But look at some of these heroes who have achieved legendary status for the stuff they did. Anyway, good to mention that stuff. Let's take a couple of super chats because some of these are based on stuff we've talked about so far. Abraham says, I intellectually subjugated this priest on the same level that D. Wood destroyed Comedy Dawa. He has now deleted his post, obviously because he won. Yes. He won. He won so hard, he took down his post. Here we have from the Alzut Cheek Slapper. D, will you ever collab with Jordan Peterson for hijab interview? I don't think he'll be interviewing hijab. You mean talk to him about his last interview? If Jordan Peterson wanted to interview me, I would do it, but I'm not, I don't like put myself out there for interviews. You got the guys who like want to be interviewed, like hijab and so on. Hey, interview me. And then you have people like Inspiring Philosophy and AP even when someone's like, hey, you want to, hey, we're looking for people to interview here. And people say, hey, you know, AP, Inspiring Philosophy. I tend to work with my friends and so on. So it would not surprise me.
You should be putting yourself out there for interviews.
I'm not interested.
Well, I am interested.
Yeah. No, again, I do interviews if people ask me. I'm not interested in, hey, everyone, interview me. I'd rather just work with my friends, mainly. AP looks like the type of guy that would bring veggie burgers to the barbecue.
I am the guy.
And looks like he would smell like veggie burgers. How can Christian life be better if you can't screw dudes? It's got, hey, that's a picture of Matt Dillahunty on there. What's wrong with you? You see, AP, you were never a skeptic. Why are people randomly attacking Matt Dillahunty here? Never mention the Counting Crows here again. Thank you. I want AP to do the Mattis Yahoo ortho look next, please, and thank you. Do you know what that is?
I will.
Do you know what that look is?
I don't. There's a singer by the name of Mattis Yahoo, who is a Jewish reggae singer, but I'm not sure what ortho would do to the mix of that.
You got to do that dude's ortho look. Looks like AP is having a Fred Durst complex. Oh, here's some super shekels, like the super shekels. I don't even know who Fred Durst is. He's from one of those bands, right? I only know him from the Eminem song. Sit me between such and such and Fred Durst.
Yeah.
It's funny. I heard that song like 500 times because it came out when I was locked up, and they played the song like 50 times a day, and these guys in the dorm would all have it playing the entire time.
He's the guy from Limp Bizkit.
Yeah, I knew it was one of those. Wait, he's the guy that wore the red hat?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I know who that is because I remember the video. Keep rolling. He's got a red hat on. Two-tier Kier. Douglas Murray is right. Ignore the foreign bots in the AstroTurf comment section. They are funded by Qatar and the UAE. Murray does not promote censorship.
That's true.
Well, then how do you explain the Joe Rogan interview? Where Douglas Murray said that only people who went to Oxford can talk about anything. What is the Christian position on Douglas Murray enjoying other men? What's wrong with you, man?
Oh, this guy has problems. He was earlier leaving comments of like, whatever, just ignore it.
What do you think Nabil would say about the Dawa situation if he was here? He would love it as much as I do. In fact, we were actually sitting down back then trying to figure out what to do to change a lot of the things. And basically everything we planned back then, there were certain things we wanted to do in the future that we didn't actually do and still haven't been done. I mean, I'll give you an example. We wanted to fund the translation of Ibn Abi Dawud's Kitab al-Masahif. We thought that would be important for undermining this perfect preservation nonsense and so on. So anyway, there are things like that we thought, hey, this would be important that we want to do in the future that have never gotten done. But the big picture stuff, the things we wanted to undermine, the things we wanted to expose and so on, it's all happened. It's all happened. So Nabil would be looking back like, whoa, everything that's happening right now is stuff that we were talking about and figuring out how to get done like 18 years ago. So these are,
You know what people should be funding? Somebody should be funding an English translation of Tabari's tafsir of the Quran.
well,
And why
that's
does it
huge.
like-
That's huge, though. I mean, Ibn Abi Dawud is like one book. It's like one book.
Yeah.
By the way, everyone, I'm still going to do that. I just got to, let me put it this way. I've had people say they could assemble a translation team and so on. And I've told them I would fund it. I would get the funding to cover whatever it's going to cost for them. And then I would just put it out there free. We've never made anything official as far as, okay, here's when we can start and here's when we can finish it. And here's the people involved and stuff like that. As soon as that happens, that will still get done. Anyway, long story short, answer is Nabil would be loving. He would love the holes in the narrative interview, that sort of thing. Why doesn't Israel pump apologetics material with ex-Muslims into Gaza? Israel should fight Islam with constant education on low morals of Muhammad. Because that would
Contrary
be
to
Islamophobic.
popular belief, Israel is actually Israel doesn't have many people, and Israel also doesn't have many means to tackle everything on multiple different fronts. If they did, they would be tackling all the garbage that people are spewing online. But much of the online stuff is being flooded by Qatar propaganda and Russian propaganda, and Israel can barely deal with it. So Israel doesn't have the means.
Yeah,
it also
and-
doesn't want to really alienate Islam.
That's
because
right.
of
They have
all
lots of
the
Muslims. They have
population.
lots of Muslims in Israel. You don't want to be the anti-Islam government and so on. And so they have other concerns than exposing Islam. Now we would say, well, you're going to keep having this problem as long as Islam is there, and so you have to deal with Islam. But that basically falls to us. That falls to us. I think Islam is incredibly weak, and if we ever get to a situation where exposing Islam is completely normal, as in like a normal part of education, like kids grow up and they know about Muhammad and they know the messed up things he did. I mean, and think why? What would be the problem with pointing these things out? What would be the problem pointing out, just giving straightforward factual information about Muhammad and his relationship with Aisha and Zainab and so on as part of a ordinary education? Or think about this. You could actually have, as part of a school curriculum, simple factual information about the preservation of the Quran. It's like all the confusion during the time of Muhammad. They couldn't agree on what was supposed to be in the Quran. Uthman burning all the manuscripts to cover up all the differences. Different qira'at in the world today. You could give people that information without one word of criticism about Islam, but it makes you immune to the Dawah script that comes along later on. So anyway, I think that Islam could crumble very rapidly if you had nations that had some balls to just give out real information. I'm not even talking about criticism or mockery or anything, just basic factual information. The Dawah, the ultimate enemy of the Dawah script is reality. Like you just have to know what's real. You just have to know what's true. And you are immune to the Dawah script. And so anyway, I hope that happens in the future. But no, I wouldn't expect Israel to be going in there to Gaza and exposing Muhammad as a false prophet.
Exposed.
Wing Wong says, as someone with 11 fingers, I agree with JP and Douglas Murray. Well, then you know it's true. Julian Gentry is an agent of Mossad and a Mike Winger fan. I hate to expose him, but I call it how I see it. That's probably true. That's probably true. D. Wood is always so ungrateful when I dazzle him with my erudition, but bet he's just jealous of my superior basedness. Anyways, I'm going to bed. Good, so we don't have to hear these lies anymore. Nie wieder Faschismus. Never again shall Masada fall. No more fascism. Hey, we have Abdullah and Huda with Mr. and Mrs. Friendly Ex-Muslim.
Hey,
Hamas
what's up?
also unalived Gazan protesters. Yeah, they're still doing that.
Yeah, they did. They still do.
Hussein Mashni. Hey, what's up, Hussein? He says, I lived in Gaza when Israelis were pulled out. In Ashkelon, a few miles north, billboards warned, prepare for missiles from Gaza. Yeah, smart. We have a question for AP when he gets back. AP, when's your rap album dropping? You should get cornrows next time. Yeah, AP needs some cornrows. I'll read that to him when he gets back. D-Wood, what if Gazan converted to Buddhism and do yoga? That would help. Rid, Dave, great to see you both. God bless. Thank you. We'll have to get back to this comment when AP gets back because it's for him. All right, back to this interview.
But there are lots of terrible stories from the day that I recount. But as I say, it also seems to me to be important to credit the people who survived and who didn't, who showed unbelievable heroism.
It didn't really surprise me, I suppose, that there were security lapses. I mean, if you're dealing with an enemy that's absolutely committed, the probability that over some long span of time, they're going to find a way through your defenses.
Yeah.
How is that not 100% if everything isn't locked down and there's any semblance of freedom whatsoever?
Yeah.
So the explanation you offered about the mythical status of Israeli invulnerability seems to me to be the most effective explanation.
That and one other thing, which was what was known as the conception, which I spoke about with military and other political leaders. It's a very interesting thing, this. The conception was effectively, it was obviously...
AP, while you were gone,
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson was pointing out that if you have a bunch of enemies right across the other side of the fence and they're absolutely obsessed with getting at you, it's kind of a matter of time before they figure out a way to break through. I guess especially since they're being showered with he didn't point this out, but they will talk about this later. Especially since they're being showered with billions of dollars and you have all sorts of weapons and so on being funneled to them and so on. It's kind of if all that's between you is a fence, it's kind of a matter of time before guys figure out a way to circumvent this. So Jordan Peterson pointed that out, and then Douglas Murray said there's something else here. It's called the conception. But you're asked by Android, sent by CyberLife. AP, when's your rap album dropping? You should get cornrows next time.
Soon.
Okay, soon. His album. Who is AP coming soon?
Soon.
Right.
The thing is also on October 7, what happened on October 7 came very, very much through the fundings of by certain countries such as Iran and also Qatar. And right now we're talking about Qatar giving us, Donald Trump, a huge gift, a plane, which is a very, very interesting twist of things to happen.
It's extremely interesting. Like, what does Donald Trump need with a plane, right? I mean, he used to own his own entire airline, Trump Airlines, and so on. He's already got Air Force One. So I'm guessing it's, hey, we got the new most tricked out plane and we're going to give it to you as if there are no strings attached. And Trump's like, oh, well, cool. I'm really making a difference. People who love me. They love me so much. They're giving me free things. They're giving me planes. They're giving me all the planes. It's the best plane. Whereas other people are like, come on.
It's disgrace.
Qatar knows what it's doing when it gives these awesome gifts. And you see it on college campuses. You see it on college campuses that Qatar has showered with money. What happens with the administrations on these places? It's actually been shown. Qatar will shower a university with money, and then you can look at the papers that are being put out by the people at the university. Suddenly they end up on one side of the ideological spectrum. It's very interesting, very interesting. So smart, Qatar, smart, but evil.
Yeah.
Terrible mistake, but was a belief in some of the security infrastructure in Israel, that Hamas were effectively like so many terrorist and radical movements throughout history, that they had been misgoverning the Gaza effectively since Israel withdrew in 2005, but they'd stolen billions of dollars of international aid.
Yeah.
All the leaders of Hamas were billionaires.
Billionaires.
Thanks to the Canadian, American, European,
Yes,
British
bully for
taxpayers.
us. Seriously.
Well done for us.
Yeah,
for
that's
our
for sure.
Great use
Really,
of our
really quite something.
taxpayer funds. The
Did you hear this? They're really clearly just ticked off about this. All the leaders of Hamas were billionaires by this time. Why? Because we keep sending them piles and piles and piles of money to help the poor people of Gaza. What happens? You send it to Hamas, and their leaders become billionaires. They keep their kids out of there. Their kids are living in places like Qatar and so on, and they're riding around in Bugattis and so on. And that's where the actual aid money goes. You send piles of money because you want to help the poor Palestinians and so on. Meanwhile, these guys are pocketing it and they're becoming billionaires. And these guys are just like, "Are you serious?" That's how stupid you Western nations are. You're giving money to make terrorists billionaires, and you think you're doing a good job. What's up?
Here's what's interesting. Here's what's funny. So Israel was already supplying Gaza with a lot of their needs for free. Aside from Israel giving them stuff for free, the nations of the world were all the time responding to the beggary and sending all kinds of funds over to them and giving them whatever they want for free. The leaders of Hamas, they had so much of the supplies that were being sent over to the so-called Palestinian victims that they were filling their own pockets, but also giving so much money to their to the people to live in an okay life. The funny thing that people don't know is that before October 7th, before the war started, the unemployment rate in Gaza was like around 50% or so. Around 50%. Despite that, the living standards in Gaza were better than Lebanon, for example, which is a free country. We're better than half the nations in the world. Far better than South Africa, for example, which is very ironic. Which was the first country to kind of try to get Israel in trouble.
So hold on, hang on. You're saying that the situation for Palestinians was already better than lots of other places in the world.
Yeah.
But we're sending piles of money to them anyway.
Yeah.
And it's going to Hamas and filling their pockets.
Yes. So they were getting used to, so the population doesn't work because the leaders just beg, and they get so much money that the leaders are billionaires. The operatives build massive tunnels from where they conduct military operations, and the population lives in comfort. But the idiots around the world think, "Oh no, the Palestinians need help. Let's send money."
Because they're told that. They're told that.
Yeah.
Especially like in college and so on. Hey, help these poor people. Help these poor people. Help you. I have to say, this has been like in terms of like marketing the idea that you're selling and so on. They've done a phenomenal job at that. And really, I mean, that was actually part of the plan of like Yasser Arafat. Hey, I can, let's change this narrative from being a fight between like Arabs who want to destroy Jews to poor persecuted people group called the Palestinians who were here in our country before Israel came and stole the land. Once you completely fabricate that narrative, you just make it up. If you can actually sell that to the world, get the world to believe Israel just showed up, pushed poor people off their land, and now these poor people are just, they're there starving and so on unless you help them. If you can actually sell that narrative, you can become a billionaire. Yasser Arafat died a billionaire, ladies and gentlemen. He found a way to monetize that entire situation. And they're still milking it. And what's going on right now? The entire world, please raise money, please raise money. Where are you going to send it? To Hamas? Great. Super base plan. Gosh, people are stupid.
The very funny thing is that right now they have been arguing forever now that people in Gaza are starving. The thing is, the current situation is actually not that that the people in Gaza are starving, but that they may be on the brink of a starvation crisis if the situation is not fixed or restored right now. But you will hear everywhere all the time, all the people of Gaza are starving. They're starving. They have nothing left to eat, no food left. We have to help them. And people are actually sending money over there.
Yeah, you see that video that I saw a video yesterday where a guy was like eating leaves, just like regular leaves off the ground. He's like, oh, it's so starving, but he looks like completely healthy and fit.
Yeah, yeah.
And then other people are posting these videos about what it's like in the shopping center and stuff, and how awesome it is, and everything's loaded and stuff. And they're sitting there eating a cake, and they're simultaneously posting videos about how awesome it is there, and posting videos about how they're forced to eat leaves because they're starving.
Yeah.
Wild stuff. Hang on. Got these real quick. Yo, D. Wood, you should watch Jordan Peterson's interview with James Lindsay and then read the comments. Fun little pastime. Whack a groiper. I'm looking at Peterson's page. Is that the most recent one from 8 days ago? It says, when the right goes too far, Dr. James Lindsay. So that's Jordan Peterson. What did he say a while back? That you've got all these psychopaths on the right now?
Yeah.
I do not care how old Air Force One is. Taking a gift from Qatar is a bribe. And the Momos are it as one more step in getting them to conquer the world. Yeah, I would be strongly against a president taking something like that, unless he's like, thank you, now I'm still going to continue doing exactly what I've always done.
Yeah.
In other words, unless you were just clear, suppose the jihadi came up and he said, David, here's $1,000. I want you to, and like he's clearly thinking that I'm going to stop criticizing Islam. I'd be like, thank you for the $1,000. I'm going to use this to blast away your fake prophet. If it was like that, I'd be fine with it, but I don't think it's going to be like that either. Yeah. So
I also read reports that apparently accepting the new plane would be is not a very good idea because it's like the maintenance of it is incredibly expensive, and it's not going to make things better or cheaper. It's like it's apparently a huge burden. I don't know.
Yeah, I still don't even get it. It's like we're the United States of America. We're the richest country in the world, and you're the president of the United States. On what planet do you need a gift from guys who fund all kinds of insane Sharia-compliant nonsense around the world? Don't need it. Moo Joe says, I do not care. Wait, I already said that. I already read that one. Next one. Starving people don't hold hostages or demand more land. Yeah, especially if all you have to do to end whatever's going on is to release the hostages. In other words, if you're actually in a state of starvation and you could stop it by handing over the hostages, you do that. What did I just say, ladies and gentlemen? I say that's actually a good sign of when people are really starving and desperate. If they were really starving and desperate, they would hand over the hostages. As long as they're keeping the hostages, they are not really all that starving and desperate. So you could completely say no more food there until you hand over the hostages, because once you're really, really genuinely starving and out of food, then you'll hand over the hostages to end it. Al-Jalani al-Shara is trying to ethnically cleanse the minority Druze and Christian populations in Syria. Israel has pledged to protect them. Reminder, Qatar Muslim Brotherhood is backing al-Jalani. Yeah, and I think various Western governments are saying he's a good guy too, Jelani and so on.
Yeah.
Wild
He's
stuff.
a cutie.
He's so great, and ever since he started wearing a suit, now we know we can trust him.
Such a cutie.
He's such a cutie pie.
Millions of dollars that went into Gaza were largely used by Hamas leaders to enrich themselves, to build an incredibly elaborate terrorist infrastructure throughout Gaza, miles and miles of underground tunnels, very, very elaborate systems, some effectively crawl spaces, others large enough to drive military vehicles from one end of Gaza to the other. And they built that whole infrastructure over the 18 years or so that they governed Gaza. And that was the other way in which they used their money. But the conception, which turned out to be a misconception, was that part of the security apparatus in Israel believed that Hamas leadership were happy with just
Guys, I'm rewinding this because this is a very important point. A very, very important point as far as it's part of why Israel thought they were safe. It's part of why Israel thought, okay, these guys are going to fire rockets at us occasionally. They're going to fire rockets at us occasionally, but it's just for show. These guys are not even trying to win. Why? They're all billionaires. The leaders are all billionaires. They really want to destroy their own lives by going to war and end that. Do they really want to win? Of course they don't. They're billionaires. They're billionaires. And so, yeah, they're going to fire rockets. They're not seriously going to do something to really, really attack us, because then we'd have to go after these guys. And they're billionaires. They're billionaires. They don't seriously want to do it. They just want to pretend so they can continue being billionaires. Guys, that's part of the strategy. That's kind of intentional as far as, it's actually good that these guys are becoming billionaires. Why? If they're billionaires, they got too much to lose. You don't want to fight. And so it's kind of okay that these guys are becoming billionaires. It means you're safer. It means you're safer. You have if you actually had a bunch of poor, starving, enraged people who want to destroy you and they've got nothing to lose, that's who you got to worry about. Billionaires? You don't have to worry about billionaires. What are they going to do? So it was actually a good thing that the leaders of Hamas had become billionaires. They've got too much to lose at that point for them and their children. They want to remain billionaires, and therefore they're not going to seriously ever want to fight. Very important point. Let me back this up because I want people to get it.
And that was the other way in which they used their money. But the conception, which turned out to be a misconception, was that part of the security apparatus in Israel believed that Hamas leadership were happy with just being corrupt. They were living in luxury, penthouses.
Corrupt was sufficient malevolence.
Corrupt was sufficient. Rather like the Soviet Union and by the 80s. The leaders didn't believe it anymore. They just wanted to drink and have whatever they could in the time they had.
Right.
And
hedonistic materialism trumps fanatical malevolence.
And of course,
that's quite the theory.
Yeah, and many times in history that has turned out to be true. A lot of revolutionary movements have done that. But this turned out to be completely wrong.
Guys, so you remember Black Lives Matter and so on, right?
They do.
So, yeah, people donated tens of millions of dollars to Black Lives Matter and so on. And then people find out that these guys are like buying mansions and so on. The leaders of the movement that the money's going to are like buying mansions and using it to fund all their friends, sending money to all their friends and stuff. So so if you're one of the leaders and you want to give your, a family member or your friend $200,000 or $500,000, something like that, you just say, oh, yes, and this person is security for this or that and so on. So they were doing that. Anyway, the point there is you've got people who are saying they believe in this big movement and so on, but once they start getting money, it becomes about the money, and it's not real anymore. And as long as that's going on, these people are not real revolutionaries. They are using people's desire for some sort of revolution to fill their pockets with money. And guess what? You don't actually have to worry about the leaders in that situation because they're not really trying to do anything to harm you. They're fine. They've got piles. They got the piles of money they wanted, and you don't want to lose that. And so we are aware of that. And Douglas is pointing out, here's a situation where, no, they want their money. They actually also want to destroy Israel and are willing to take risks to get it done.
In the case of the Hamas leadership, they wanted to enrich themselves, and they wanted to do what they said they were going to do, which was to annihilate the Jews. And if you look...
Why not have both?
They managed to try to have both. But if you look at, for instance, one of the central figures of the book, Sinwar, Yahya Sinwar, one of the leaders of Hamas, who'd been in an Israeli jail until 2011 for killing Palestinians with his own hands, literally throttling them with his own hands and with a kafir.
He was the one who had such a remarkable obituary in the New York Times, if I remember correctly.
One of many.
Wait, this is the guy where everyone thought was a hero? And like Andrew Tate was like, oh, he died the death of a hero. I wish we could all die a hero's death like this.
I wish.
Yahya Sinwar was a true psychopath. And I'd known about him for years. A lot of people who studied the region had. He was what would have been called a true believer. After he'd been released in a prisoner exchange for one Israeli soldier who they'd kidnapped in the late 2000s, after Sinwar was exchanged, and by the way, having had his life saved by an Israeli doctor in prison, Sinwar went back to Gaza, seized back control of Hamas, said repeatedly in public statements that he wanted Hamas to go into Israel and tear the hearts out of the bodies of the Jews. On the 7th, he took his best shot at it. And it turned out that what Sinwar said he wanted to do, he did.
Get that, guys? So they're pointing out these guys are saying they want to destroy Israel, but you don't actually believe them because they're billionaires. And they're pointing out, nah, some of these guys believe exactly what they're saying. There's another little point. I want to back this up a couple seconds because I didn't want to interrupt Jordan Peterson because he's pointing out something interesting about some of these guys.
He took his best shot at it. And it turned out that what Sinwar said he wanted to do, he did.
It's very common for people who are extremely malevolent to tell you exactly what they're going to do and then do it.
You catch that, guys? Oh, learn that. It's common for people who are extremely malevolent and want to do horrible things. They'll tell you exactly what they want to do, and then they'll do it. And you sit there thinking, there's no way you're going to do that. You wouldn't be saying that if you actually wanted to do it. You just do it. No, I want to tell you about it, and then do it. Hang on, watch.
On the 7th, he took his best shot at it. And it turned out that what Sinwar said he wanted to do, he did.
It's very common for people who are extremely malevolent to tell you exactly what they're going to do and then do it.
You know why, guys? Because it's more fun. It's more fun to tell you exactly what I'm going to do, the horrible things I want to do, and then do it. It's more fun that way. They're saying this guy's a genuine psychopath.
That's exactly what Andrew Wilson did before he had the debate with me. He told people what he was going to do to me when he had the debate with me, and then he failed to do it.
Andrew tried to be a psychopath and failed.
Far more common than people think. And the fact that people are blind to that reality points to something that we'll have to discuss in more detail. This insistence by naive people in the West that no such thing as malevolence exists, right? All perpetrators are victims until proven otherwise.
Victims we haven't understood yet, or they may have had a bad childhood.
Mm-hmm. You guys catching this as well? So he's just applying that. Jordan Peterson is first just bringing up like psychopaths and so on, like really, really violent, malevolent people and so on. They'll tell you exactly what they want to do. And then you think, oh, they're not going to do it. And no, they're doing it. They're telling you what they're going to do, and then they're doing it. That's actually more fun. And it's because they're so confident when they're telling you about it. They're confident in their own ability to get this done. I will tell you about it, and then I will do it, and you'll just be shocked. So there's that. But then they both just tied it to other issues. Like after every jihadi attack that's ever happened, these guys are screaming Allahu Akbar, and here's why we do it. And here's my manifesto explaining why I have to kill you kuffar and so on. I've given you all the verses from the Quran and all the passages from the Hadith. I'm telling you exactly why I'm doing this. And what's your reaction? Oh, that's not the real reason. That's not the real reason. The real reason is climate change. Climate change. He's been so horribly impacted by climate change that he's been forced to become a jihadi and so on. Guys, I'm not exaggerating. Go look it back. That has been an actual response to why there's this uptick in terrorist attacks and so on. It's because of climate change.
No.
The point is, you just don't want to believe what people are saying. You don't want to believe, no, we are here to violently subjugate you because our religion command. You just can't believe that. You can't believe that in the West.
Well, no doubt they did, but there's plenty of people who had bad childhoods who don't turn into malevolent psychopaths.
That's my observation.
So, yes, it's definitely the case. Let's delve a little bit deeper into what happened. I want to lay some propositions before you. When October 7th made its presence known, the first thing that occurred to me, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, if I have some misapprehension.
You're wrong.
You don't even know what he's going to say.
I know he's wrong. So.
The terrible hand of Iran is behind Hamas and Hezbollah.
Good point.
Good point.
Iran has absolutely no compunctions about sacrificing every single Palestinian to the cause.
He just said Iran, who's pulling the strings, has no problem, no objection to sacrificing every last Palestinian in their effort to destroy Israel. He's correct. But also Hamas, the actual elected leaders, they have no problem. And the other terrorist groups there, none of these guys have any problem sacrificing the entire Palestinian population if it helps them destroy Israel. Point there is they do not actually have the best interests of the people of Palestine at heart. But they're treated like they do. They're treated like they do. We're just here to help the Palestinians. No, you're here to sacrifice these Palestinians because you hate Jews that much. Rough stuff.
As brutal a fashion as possible to capitalize on the public relations scandal that can be made of that.
Yeah.
They've got no feeling whatsoever for the Palestinians. They're pure cannon fodder in the eternal war against the great Satan and Israel, right?
Yes.
The U.S. and Israel.
Yeah.
That seems appropriate?
Absolutely.
Okay, so what the hell? I went to Oxford, and the first bloody thing that those half-wits asked me when I was on...
It's funny, as soon as he said he went to Oxford, he said the first bloody thing. He starts talking like an Englishman. That's funny. Let me back this up slightly. Here we go.
Well, I went to Oxford, and the first bloody thing that those half-wits...
You might want to put "what the hell" on your soundboard.
I do. I think I want to do that.
That's pretty good.
Asked me when I was on stage was if I was happy about this tweet I made on October 8th, which was "Give them hell, Netanyahu," which I paid quite the price for.
That was when the Muslims turned against him.
Yeah.
You had individual Muslims who had a problem with this or that beforehand, but they were viewing him as a possible ally right up until that tweet, where right after the right when the news of the October 7th attacks was going out there, he said, "Give them hell, Netanyahu," or whatever he said. And that's when Muslims just declared war on him. I mean, like the Dawah guys and so on, but all over Twitter. And that's what caused the rift. So they saw him as a possible ally for what they were doing, and then they declared war on him. And now there are no more illusions about Jordan Peterson being aligned with these guys. They destroyed that.
Let me tell you, and although not so much a price as many people have paid, put it that way. And so what's Israel to do when they're faced with a disposable people, so to speak, that will be sacrificed at a moment's notice by their own leadership, by their own corrupt philosophy, and by the mullahs of Iran? What possible response could Israel have, except to roll over and submit?
Well, a lot of people would like them to do that, of course, but that's not an option. There's a famous story that Joe Biden tells. It's actually a good story.
This is funny. I heard this early this morning when I was watching this part, but I watched multiple videos and I couldn't remember where it came from. I couldn't remember, where did I just hear that awesome story? And so here's where it was. I totally forgot. I mean, I knew it was in but I watched like a Sam Harris video where he was talking about Israel. I watched several things, and then I couldn't remember who shared this story. Good story right here. Good point. Check this out.
But that's not an option. There's a famous story that Joe Biden tells. It's actually a good story for Joe Biden. Being Joe Biden, he's told it a lot. But he when he was a young senator, he once met Golda Meir, former prime minister of Israel, indeed the prime minister during the 73 war. And she famously said to Joe Biden when she was showing him around, you forget, Senator Biden, we have a secret weapon. And Biden thought that Golda Meir was going to tell him about Israel's nuclear project. And he was all ears. And he said, "What's your secret weapon?" She said, "We have nowhere else to go." Right. So.
You hear that, AP?
Yeah.
Hey, AP, why I was thinking about that is because I messaged you. I said I wanted to respond to Andrew Wilson's dumb Antichrist argument, which is why you should never help Jews, because what if they then they put out the Antichrist and then you will have supported the Antichrist and so on. So I wanted to share that little. I messaged you because I'd started thinking about that point, but I didn't remember which video I watched where it was. So I was going to have to go back through everything and find it, but then went ahead and found it right now while we're watching. But anyway, the video I want to make about Andrew Wilson is, so guys, in case you didn't see it, AP had his debate with Andrew Wilson. Andrew Wilson said his main argument, his main point which we thought, AP and I both thought was his dumbest point, but it was basically you shouldn't support Israel's right to exist and defend itself because the Jews are eventually going to put out the Antichrist and so on. And therefore, if you're helping them or supporting their right to exist and defend themselves, you're ultimately supporting the Antichrist and the rise of the Antichrist. And they've got nuclear weapons, so the Antichrist is going to use all these nuclear weapons. So you would be supporting the deaths of tons and tons of people who are all going to be victims of the nuclear war. If you're sitting here thinking, wow, what a dumb argument, look at how his fans react. They think it's the most brilliant thing ever, and it's so true. But anyway, while he was saying that, I was actually thinking, wait a minute. At what point would Israel start going nuclear? And, hey, we have to pick a Messiah we have to pick a Messiah. So Andrew's idea is they're going to think they're picking the Messiah, or they're going to think some guy is the Messiah, but he's actually going to be the Antichrist, and then they're going to nuke everybody. Okay. So when he was saying that, I was thinking, well, when is Israel going to get to a point where they're like, we have to pick a Messiah and go nuclear? My thought was, the only situation where they're actually going to get to that point is if they think they've been completely abandoned by the rest of the world and their backs are against the wall and everyone is against them and they're going to be destroyed unless they just go off and go nuclear. So the real takeaway is Andrew Wilson is concerned about causing Israel to go nuclear and to kill a bunch of people and choose a Messiah who's going to be the Antichrist. Even if you granted all of that, that's your concern. What's more likely, that nations of the world abandoning Israel and turning against it and everyone uniting to attack Israel, or, either being united against Israel, or, you're looking the other way as the people around Israel try to destroy it? What's more likely? Everyone abandoning Israel and Israel being alone and isolated and defending themselves against being destroyed and then going nuclear? Or no, other nations are supporting Israel's right to defend itself and so on, and therefore they're never in that situation of being completely backed up against the wall and in a complete last-minute fight for their existence. Everyone get the point? So Andrew's saying you shouldn't support Israel, because if you support Israel, then they'll choose the Antichrist and then they'll go nuclear and kill everybody, and so you would be responsible for that. And I'm thinking, no, it's way more likely that turning your back on Israel, all these nations and everyone else turning their backs on Israel, Israel is alone against everyone and fighting for their very existence. It's much more likely that a place that feels completely abandoned and backed against the wall would decide to go nuclear, right?
That is a good point.
So in other words, it seems like Andrew Wilson is supporting the rise of the nuclear Antichrist. Anyway, just got to put that in a video on how Andrew Wilson and his followers are supporting the rise of a nuclear-armed Antichrist.
It's a good point.
I mean, it's a serious one. I don't think like that. I mean, when you're thinking, well, I don't want to help this because this might give rise to the Antichrist. You could say that any day, right? You walk out and say, oh, this person is poor and dying on a corner. Should I help him? Well, no. What if he's the Antichrist? Okay, that's weird. That's weird kind of thinking, but that's how Andrew thinks.
Exactly. This is like I kind of wish I had gone into that. I just found the whole argument that he brought up so ridiculous that I ended up just making fun of it. And then he asked me, so should we support a nation where 30% of the people want to bring about the Antichrist? And I said, yeah. So... But your point was even church fathers who said we should, support the Jews and so on. You still had Jews who want to bring about the Messiah and so on, who are waiting on the Messiah. Yeah. And so they believed that back then, and you had church fathers who were, no, we need to. Yeah, but the thing is, what he was basically doing there was like, if we do this thing that I agree, we may be maybe we should be doing it, but if we do this thing, that it might lead to very, very bad consequences, and it might lead to the bringing of the Antichrist and some weird obsessions. But what he was basically arguing there is that we shouldn't be doing something that is possibly the right thing to do, because it could lead to this very, very catastrophic other thing. I'm sorry, but that is not Christian morality. That's not Christian morality.
That's
This is
right.
consequentialist morality, which is not Christian, right? You don't say you do what is right and what is wrong because it is right and because it is wrong. You don't go, I know that this thing here is the right thing to do, but yeah, I probably won't do it because I think it might lead to catastrophic consequences. You don't act like that. Where do you get this from?
And biblically, you don't act like. So think about this: the story of the Good Samaritan. Guys, we just hear Good Samaritan. We think that's a good thing. To hear Samaritan in the first century, if you're a Jew, those are the bad guys. Those are bad guys. Samaritans are bad guys. And Jews were bad guys to the Samaritans. And they both had their concept of the Messiah who's going to come and so on. So following Andrew Wilson's reasoning, if a Samaritan is walking down the street and he sees a Jewish guy who's, been beaten, robbed, and dying on the road, should you help him? Following Andrew Wilson's reasoning, you should not help him if you're a Samaritan, because that Jew believes in someone else who's going to be a false Messiah. It's going to be a false Messiah and who might harm you, and therefore you should not hurt that. You should not help that person. That's the reasoning. So anyway, yeah, AP and I both thought that was really, really, really weird. But
Stupid.
doesn't stop the orthobros from thinking it's the greatest argument ever. But now you'll have to face the reality of this powerful story about Joe Biden and Golda Meir.
Anyone who thinks that rolling over is a possibility for Israel is simply somebody who wants them to be gone. What is clever about Hamas and its backers in Iran, the Iranian revolutionary government, is that they know exactly how to put Israel in an even more intolerable situation each time they attack.
Uh-huh.
So, for instance, they know that if you kidnap Israelis, one of the absolutely central things of the fabric of Israeli society, as with most Western societies, is you don't allow your citizens to remain behind.
Yeah.
Just like you don't leave your soldiers behind. That if you fall behind enemy lines, if you are taken behind enemy lines, the state will do everything it can to get you back. And that has been a compact in Israel since the foundation in 1948, and a really central thing.
Important point here. They actually very much proved that is their thinking as well, because on October 7, Hamas did not only take living hostages back to Gaza, they also took back with them dead hostages. So the goal, their instructions were to take back, to kill people that are fighting, but also to take as many hostages as possible, but not just to take as many living hostages as possible. Of course, they could make use of some living hostages, especially of women.
Hey, pause.
What?
I got to answer something real quick. Go ahead and tell them more about that. I'll be back in a few seconds.
Yes. So the idea there was not to just take living hostages with them, because they know that living hostages will definitely be demanded to be brought back by Israel. They also took dead hostages with them, so they killed innocent people, innocent civilians on October 7, and of those killed people, as many as they could, they brought the dead bodies, the corpses, with them back to Gaza. You even have it on videos where they shoot civilians who are in their cars. The civilians then are taken out of their cars and put on the back of a pickup truck and taken to Gaza. So the Hamas terrorists take dead civilian Israelis to Gaza because they know for a fact that Israel will want to have those dead civilians back. They not only want to have every living hostage back, they also want to have every dead hostage back. Hamas knows this. Hamas knows that Israel cares about the hostages. Hamas, on the other hand, they don't care. They really do not care. They don't care about their own deaths. They don't care about anything. They don't care about lives. But they know that one thing, And they say it very, very often. They know that Israelis love life, and they actually say it very openly. They say they love life, or we love death as much as you love life. This is the mentality that Hamas has. This is the mentality that Islamic terrorists in general have, or that Islamists in general have. It's not something that just terrorists say. It's also something that other Islamists say. Mohammed Hijab said it too. Many of you might remember Mohammed Hijab was at a protest for Palestine, and he was saying, "We love death. We love death. We don't care about death. We love death." This is the Islamic attitude. They worship death. Islamists worship death. They absolutely are in love with death. They love death. They don't love life. They don't care about life. Dying is the best thing to them. Killing and getting killed is a great honor. That's basically the Islamic mentality. And David Wood is, oh, sorry, there he is. Sorry. Yeah, and he's back. Hey, what's up? You're muted.
Talking trash about me, man?
Yeah, I was talking trash. Sorry.
Don't be talking trash. Don't be talking no trash. All right. What point did you make summed up in 5 seconds?
I didn't. I was just telling a story.
Right.
No, I was telling them about how Hamas was taking back dead people as hostages as well on October 7th, because they know that Israel is going to do anything they can to bring everyone back. That's what they do.
And guys, understand the point, the overall point that was being made there. The enemies of Israel understand that every single battle basically backs Israel more against the wall in terms of the world population, because you go and attack them, they respond, and when they respond, you all go, "Oh, look, they're oppressing us, and this hurts their opinion, turns more people against them, isolates them even more, right? But you understand that, and that's the point of taking the hostages. You understand that because these guys are backed against the wall and they're fighting for their survival, their population has to understand that you're not going to abandon them. You are going to come and rescue them. So it's in your interest to keep taking hostages, hide the hostages in tunnels, knowing that the IDF is going to come for those hostages, and knowing that people are going to die. A bunch of people are going to die when they come to get their hostages back. And then so when they come to get their hostages back, you're hiding them in tunnels and so on, and people die. And then you go, "Look, they're just killing people. They're killing the people. Oh my goodness." And you turn more people against them. And each encounter you have, you hurt Israel more and more and more. So this is the overall strategy that he's pointing out.
So Hamas,
Well,
It's and one aspect of it is also, of course, that they not only hide the hostages in such places, they also directly they use, and this is like lots of people when they hear this, because it sounds so unbelievable and so stupid, they actually use civilian buildings and hospitals and so on to conduct military operations.
yeah, they're about to point that out.
They put tunnels and so on into their homes, into kitchens, into
He's
bedrooms,
about to point that out too.
children's bedrooms,
Bedrooms.
and kids' bedrooms. And the thing is, into civilian buildings, hospitals, and so on. And for those who might still not believe it, for those who might be Christians and who might not believe it, and who might say, "Oh, this is just Israeli propaganda," I pointed out during my debate. And I can point it out again for those who want to look it up. If you want to challenge yourself, if you don't believe the so-called propaganda, we even have the Gazan bishop, I think Alexios. He said back in 2014 that he is concerned because Hamas is using the church, the ancient St. Porphyrius church, and its compound to fire missiles at Israel in order to provoke Israel to fire back at the church compound. And when they fire back at the church compound and the church gets damaged, they then appeal to Christians around the world and say, "Look, Israel is attacking Christian sites." They seriously are doing this. If you don't believe me, search for it. Gaza bishop says Hamas uses church to fire missiles. You will find it immediately. I'm serious.
Isn't it crazy that like you think, okay, they're doing this, but it's so obvious that it's easy to expose, and yet idiots just fall for this over and over and over again, especially young people, like instantly. Like you think this is so, I mean, yeah, they're doing something messed up, but it's easy to expose. You've got people here who are deliberately attacking Israel because they want the retaliation and so on, and they make it so that everything they're doing is about near or under a hospital, near or under a school, near or under a church, and so on, so that when the retaliation comes, it does damage to those things. And they say, look, they're attacking hospitals, they're attacking churches, they're attacking schools. Oh my goodness, what monsters.
Who would do this?
It's no secret. People have been, they acknowledge that they do that sort of thing. They acknowledge that they do this messed up stuff. They acknowledge that they use civilians as cannon fodder and so on. And yet, idiots keep falling for it.
Yes, Christian church in Gaza asked somebody. Yes, there is an ancient church. Said the same Porphyrius church is in Gaza, and Hamas has repeatedly used it to fire missiles at Israel, and it was actually damaged in the current war. And at some point, a building where people were hiding collapsed as a result of damage, and 18 people died. People, of course, blamed Israel for this once again, despite the fact that the bishop himself...
They still do. It still comes up anytime I mention Israel. But they're targeting churches to kill all Christians.
The bishop himself said Hamas uses it to fire missiles at Israel. So
interesting stuff.
As new, and I have lots of testimony from people who, for instance, overheard terrorists on the morning as they were lying dead or other things, heard the terrorists at, for instance, the Nova Party debating which of the young girls they should shoot and which they should kidnap. And, you know, there were debates that they might have had too many girls to take back, for instance. But Hamas did the kidnapping knowing that to have 250 Israelis in captivity is to have an unbelievable advantage over the Israelis, because they're going to have to come in. They're going to try to save them. They're going to try to rescue them.
They'll exchange hundreds of terrorists for single Israelis.
It's I remember this was several months ago. I talked about how many hostages were still being held, and people were responding, "Oh, but yeah, they're all dead now. They're definitely dead." And I was thinking, you don't really, these hostages are worth their weight in gold, unless there's some reason for killing them, like, hey, we got someone approaching, they're approaching or something like that. You do not want to kill these hostages. These are worth their weight in gold. And so, yeah, and that's why they were just able to release a hostage. People were saying, none of these guys are alive. It's been too long. They're not alive. Yeah, they are. At least some of them are.
Happened recently, an exchange of Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails for committing acts of terrorism, preparing suicide vests, trying to carry out bombings, and much more, knife attacks. They will exchange sometimes hundreds of those Palestinians for, as happened the other week, the coffins of 2 Jewish babies. So,
well, one of the things that's striking about your book is your continued explication of the Hamas and Hezbollah terrorists, psychopaths, their willingness to exploit every element of human decency to wage the most destructive possible of wars,
yes.
Right? So the tunnels, let's go into that for a minute. So Gaza is 11 by 11 miles.
Little side note, Jordan Peterson doesn't seem to be very, very fond of psychopaths.
Yeah, he doesn't like him.
It's pretty off-putting,
That's probably why he didn't invite you.
Very rude, very rude.
Approximately 140 square miles, 350 miles of tunnels, right? Longer than the London Underground, which is a stunning fact. Stunning fact.
Longer than the London Underground, and as I joked to the British military friend, rather better run.
6,000.
That's messed up, man. Longer than the London Underground. So, guys, that's London's subway system. London is actually huge, guys. London is actually huge, and they got these trains that go everywhere, all over the place. And Gaza has more. That's for trains and so on. And he's just pointing out these guys have more tunnels than the London Underground under Gaza. And he says it's better run. It's messed up.
Entrances?
And they claim that they need your money.
Yeah.
Send your money over to them. They need it.
Yeah. I mean, think about what it would take to build the London Underground system. I mean, it's like insane. That's what they built under Gaza, using money that you sent them. Well, not necessarily you, but your government sent them that money to build all that.
You sent them. Everyone who's watching, you sent it to them.
You did it.
Many of them in the bedrooms of children?
Oh, almost always where the tunnel entrances come up, they come up in children's bedrooms, in houses throughout Gaza. They come up inside mosques, but they come up inside hospitals. Even in 2014, the BBC acknowledged that the Hamas leadership were coming up from tunnels underneath the Shifa hospital, which is one of their command headquarters. By the way, all of that is, for anyone who cares about this, completely against every law of war.
Yeah.
Everyone understand this? You put all these tunnels, you put your entrances, hospitals, kids' bedrooms, mosques, wherever, so that when the IDF has to go and go into that tunnel, they are simultaneously shown to be attacking a mosque, attacking a hospital, attacking a poor innocent civilian child's bedroom. Smart.
It's not only that, which is the very sick aspect of it. It's also that Hamas knows very well that the safest place for them will be a child's bedroom, for example, or a hospital, because despite Israel having to attack and having to conduct an operation there at some point, those are places that that Israel will attack last. Mm-hmm. They know this. So they know that their enemy actually cares about the rights of the Gazan civilians, and they actually exploit that.
Yeah, so they use it because, I mean, think about it. It's brilliant, but it's evil. And as Douglas Murray's pointing out, you're not allowed to do this as far as like regulations about war in the world. You're violating international laws about conducting a war. You put your terror tunnel under in a hospital, and the entrance is the hospital, or the entrance is the mosque, or the entrance is the child's bedroom, or something like that. And as AP was pointing out, there are only two options. You either say, okay, I'm not gonna go after the terror tunnel because it's under a hospital and I don't want to attack the hospital, in which case it gives you protection. Your terror tunnel is protected. Or you say, you know what, I've got to get that terror tunnel taken care of, so I have to go to the hospital, in which case you are attacking a hospital, and that's how you'll be represented in the media. These guys are really good at putting Israel in these situations where either way we win. Either you don't attack because it's under a hospital, or you do attack and you're attacking a hospital. Either way we win.
The Geneva Conventions, every convention of war is you are not allowed to fight. You're not meant to fight in civilian clothing. Mm-hmm. You're not meant to fight and fire from places of worship.
But
You're not meant to stockpile ammunition in hospitals.
But
You're not meant to make civilian homes targets.
They do.
For reasons that our species thought we all understood.
Sufficiently victimized perpetrators have no reason to abide by any standards.
No,
How
and
about
of course,
that for an argument?
And of course, militarily, this is all to Hamas's enormous advantage.
Massive advantage if you just don't care about anything remotely resembling a rule of war.
Because again, they know that if there is a stockpile of ammunition or a terrorist or a tunnel entrance or whatever in a civilian home, and even if the Israelis tell all the locals to get out, the world's media will say that Israel bombed or invaded a civilian home.
Mm-hmm. Or a hospital or a place of worship.
There's a member of the Israeli
None of those words have the same meaning.
None of them.
In Gaza that they do in the West.
None at all. It's whenever it's reported that, that a hospital has been hit, it's usually reported in the world's press, as Hamas wants, that the Israelis just decided to bomb a hospital, as if they're so evil, these Israelis, that they even bomb hospitals. There was a member of the Israeli War Cabinet, Gadi Eisenkot, who I quote in the book because he lost his son fighting in Gaza in the aftermath of October the 7th. And the next day he lost his nephew, also fighting in Gaza. His nephew was killed because as the Israelis were trying to do this incredibly delicate military operation to get back the hostages, destroy the leadership of Hamas, and minimize any possible civilian casualties, Gadi Eisenkot's nephew was fired upon from a mosque by Hamas terrorists who gleefully opened fire on him and his unit. And they were meant to be sticking to the... Hamas were doing that. The Israelis were trying to stick to the normal laws of conflict.
Guys, get what happened? So this guy's nephew doesn't want to attack a mosque, but he's being fired on from a mosque. And if you respond and shoot back, it's all over the world. They're attacking a mosque. People were just in there worshiping and they attacked the mosque. Look, here's pictures of all the bullet holes in the mosque. They're attacking the mosque.
How could they do that? Oh no.
And not just destroy the mosque. And so they lost soldiers. This is another example of the way in which Hamas do this. Any normal society that valued the life of their own civilians, like America, Britain, Israel, would, if it knew that its people were going to come under bombardment, often do what the Israelis did in the south and indeed across much of the country, which is you build bomb shelters in every home. And you have bomb shelters in every civilian area. And across the south of Israel, that's the case.
Hey, by the way, that's an interesting point. So how does Israel respond to these guys attacking from hospitals, mosques, schools, hiding behind civilians, dressing as civilians? What's the main way Israel responds? The main way Israel responds is to build tons of bomb shelters and say, okay, these guys are going to keep attacking us. But keep in mind, Israel could wipe these guys out tonight. They could completely wipe them out tonight if they wanted to. They don't want to. And so the main way they deal with it is, okay, we're just going to be targets for a long, long time. We'll try to go in and deal with specific threats when we need to. But the main response is we just have to deal with this. We have to deal with the fact that there are people who are firing at us from mosques and hospitals and so on, and we can't just go level the place. And that makes them the bad guys when they actually do say, hey, we have to go after these guys because they took hostages or these guys killed a bunch of our people. So we have to go after them. And then they're the bad guys. And even if they sit there and do nothing and just hide in tunnels, even if they just go and hide in shelters and so on when the rocket attacks happen. And so they're still the bad guys. Doesn't matter what they do. They're the bad guys.
As it is in the north, because it's been being shelled by Hezbollah for 20 years. But only in Gaza do you get a situation where, and I quote one of the Hamas leaders saying this in an interview with Al Arabiya last year, this Hamas leader was asked by a friendly Arab journalist, why, if you say the civilian casualties in Gaza are so high, why can't you allow the civilians of Gaza to shelter in your tunnel networks that you've built underneath Gaza?
Famous clip you've played many times.
And the Hamas leader says, but the tunnel system is not for the civilians. The tunnel system is for our fighters and for our weaponry. And the interviewer says, well, who's to look after the civilians? And he says, well, the international community.
Right.
I made a video a while back when I pointed out that significant difference between Israel and Hamas. The shelters in Israel are for the civilian, men, women, and children, to run and hide in. They're not for the soldiers. When something happens, the soldiers stay up there and fight while the civilian men, women, and children hide in the shelters.
Exactly.
Hamas builds underground shelters all over Gaza, a whole tunnel network and places to live and so on underground. When there's fighting, it's the soldiers who go hide and they leave the civilians above ground. It's like they're exact opposites. On one side, soldiers stay above ground and fight, civilians run and hide. On the other side, soldiers run and hide while civilians have to stay up and deal with the situation. Very, 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 very different mentality there. But if that's all I knew, about two groups, if I didn't know anything else about these two groups, and I said, okay, on one side, they send the civilians to hide and the soldiers fight. On the other side, the soldiers run and hide and leave the civilians to deal with the situation. I would say one of those sides is seriously more messed up than the other, if I knew nothing else about them.
Well, that's just testament to the fact that the Palestinians are essentially cannon fodder for the eternal war
Exactly.
against Israel and the United States.
Yes, but it's even worse than that. That of course, an army that fights by the laws of war, which the IDF does, like the American Army, like the British Army, makes mistakes for sure, like the American Army, like the British Army, but that fights by the laws of war. When it encounters a terrorist army like this, the civilized army seeks to minimize the civilian casualties, as the IDF has done, and anyone who claims that it hasn't just does not know what's been going on for the last 18 months.
And believes Hamas reports.
And believes Hamas reports.
Which why would anyone ever believe Hamas reports?
Yeah, you're going to believe the reports of the guys who became billionaires by... They've monetized the suffering of the people who voted them into power. They monetized it, became billionaires, and then as they took over, they built a bunch of tunnels for themselves to hide in, and they regard the civilian population as cannon fodder. Who are we going to listen to? What reports are we going to listen to about what's going on? We're going to listen to them. That's what every media organization does. Hey, Hamas, what's the latest info that you want us? What's the latest propaganda that you want us to spread around the world?
Well, I was listening to those who make lots of money because they seem smart, yeah.
Yeah, if you made lots of money and you were able to use this whole situation to your advantage and to become billionaires, you're obviously very wise, and we should listen to you.
It's. I mean,
actually, so what he just brought up about Israel just living with the situation, and what you just brought up, just living with the situation, getting used to it, just building shelter and all that while the soldiers are fighting. I got this book, this little kid's book, a while ago because
Rockets
I thought
glow.
it was a very, very interesting example of how things are in Israel. So this is a children's book written by some Israeli person, by some Israeli guy, Israeli father, I believe, written to read to kids in Israel. And it's basically Under the Rockets Glow. It is a book about how you explain to your children who are going to sleep at night that there are a bunch of lights and a bunch of rockets in the sky all the time over there, and why this is happening. And it's basically it goes into whole explaining how there is too much hate in the world, and people just over time it then goes to the Bible, back to biblical times, and how there have always been trials and always been oppression and always been hatred against good people, the people of God, and so on. But that these are just things that we have to go through and live through and somehow survive and so on. But it's just this is the situation, This is how they live. This is you have to explain to your child, well, we just have to live in a world where the other side just wants to fight with us and fire rockets at us and wants to kill us, but we have to keep our hopes up and our faith and so on.
And AP, this actually ties into something I was mentioning earlier. Mentioned how all these houses, anything, Airbnb, they all have these safe rooms. They have these safe rooms. These heavily armored safe rooms and so on. Over and over again, we saw what? That as far as the people who just ordinarily live there, those are the kids' rooms. So when you're so you have a house and it's built with a safe room in it, but as far as like ordinary everyday living, that's your kid's bedroom. That's your kid's bedroom. So everywhere we went, like when we went to the Kibbutz, that was the kid's bedroom that we went in, that was the armored room. That was the safe room. We had an Airbnb. They had a safe room there. I slept in the safe room, but that was when it wasn't being rented out. That was a kid's room. Mm-hmm. But think about that. Your child lives in this big armored room. Why? Why do I live in a big armored room at night? Why do you have me sleeping in this? Looks like a bank vault, basically. Why do I sleep in this bank vault? Well, because there are a bunch of people who want to destroy you. And sometimes, if there's an attack in the middle of the night or something like that, we don't have a lot of time to react. We want you safe in that safe room. If Hamas were designing places like that, they would design the safe rooms for themselves, and they would put the kids up on the roof. That's what they would do.
Yeah.
And those are the good guys, according to college students around the world. Bunch of idiots.
I go to a mass murderer to find out their account of their actions, you know. But the point is that when an army like that encounters an army that not just desires death for its enemy, but desires death for the people it purports to govern, and with a kicker in it, seeks death itself. This is a realm of fanaticism and what I call it's a death cult. Mm-hmm. A cult that literally worships death. The leadership of Hamas, who I quote in the book, have for decades boasted about the extent to which they love death, embrace death. And one of the underlying things in this book, as you know, which we'll come on to doubtless later, but is what happens if a society that actually values life encounters a death cult that worships and glories in death for its foes, but also for itself.
Ha! I pointed that out in a video I made probably a couple weeks ago. But guys, I was pointing it out in the context of Hamas's founding charter, right? So you go to article, whatever it is, like 7 or something. I think it's article 7. That's where they say that no matter how long it takes, they're going to carry out Muhammad's prophecy that the Jews will be hiding behind rocks and trees, and the rocks and trees will cry out, hey, you know, there's a Jew hiding behind me, come and kill him, and so on. That they want to fulfill this and exterminate Jews. The very next article was their motto, and it's that death for the sake of Allah is like the greatest good. Mm-hmm. So, but I mean, think about that. What do you, Hamas, what do you want for your enemies? We want them dead. Okay, what do you want for your own people? We want them dead. We want them dead for Allah, right? We want our enemies dead, and we want ourselves dead. What is that? You want everyone dead. Okay, that's a death cult. That's absolutely indisputably a death cult. You want everyone to die for your God you worship, the God of death, apparently, because Allah wants everyone dead. He wants your enemies dead. He wants you dead. He wants you dying for him. He wants your enemies dead. So he wants you to kill them, and he wants you to die in the process, and he wants everyone dead. That's a death cult, and you worship a pagan god of death. That's what you do. Interesting stuff. Let's take a couple super chats, and then there's not too much longer left. Butter framed in gold says merch idea: toilet paper with Quran verses quilted into it. You are way behind the times. There's like millions of people who have suggested that. And AP's got rolls. Chalcedon 451. Nice try, Arctic Based. If that is your real name. You should change your name to Arctic Cringe. Cannot actually watch this properly, Celeria says, this time, but I figure I'll send a little bit your way and say hello anyway. Salutations, my brothers. Thank you, Celeria. Sleep well. JP is turning red because he is becoming more lobster-like. Jordan Peterson loves the lobsters. The West is not too weak, it's too coward. Yeah, I think that's what it means. It doesn't mean too weak like militarily or anything else. It means too weak like as far as your will. It's too coward. Sometimes all you need is a strong bladder like you guys have to fight against radical Islam. Jesus protect you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, no. Here we go.
Amen.
Guys, I'm not some fanatic of the Tate brothers either. Okay, I can understand that they did wrong things and condemn them for it, but we need them. Sorry. We do not need Andrew Tate and his idiot brother. We do not need them. You do not need sex traffickers / grapists to help you function in the world. These guys always do more damage than good. And yet you'll have the fans that are like, oh, but look at all the good they're doing. They're doing more damage. Philosophically Inspired says, for the Constantinople Crusade Fund. Thank you. Thank you. AP's going to need lots of funds to take back Constantinople. A plug for Raymond Ibrahim on Winston Marshall. What, do you make a video about that? And here's Tarun again. I think he should be the PM of UK. I do support the Bruv Party. Doesn't exist anymore. His personal character and history aside, Trump is not exactly a saint either, but Trump and Tate are what is best against the red left. I assume you have to be joking. Tate is an absolute scumbag. He's a narcissist. Now, Trump, I would say, is also a narcissist, but he's more high-functioning than Tate is. Everyone keep in mind, I do not think that a personality disorder is a deal breaker for accomplishing something. If there are certain situations where if I had to pick someone, I would say, let the psychopath deal with this situation, or let the narcissist deal with this situation. If it's a situation where you could take a narcissist, and if you can actually get him to think that, hey, I want to be remembered as this great guy, because that's what a narcissist wants. And in order to do that, I have to do really great things. Guess what? He might end up doing really great things. If you take an absolute scumbag who's just hell-bent on just beating the crap out of women and him feeling more powerful because of this, and that's the kind of narcissist he is, you do not want that guy in charge of anything. So take your veganism somewhere else, Tarun. Scenario, you have
no, I don't buy you vegan.
He's like, oh, but Andrew Tate will help us all become vegans. Scenario, you have a very beautiful wife and 3 gorgeous daughters. You have to go away for 6 months, and you have to choose between Jesus and Momo to stay home and look after them. Who do you choose? Well, if you want to go the Muhammad route, you can. You just have to, your wife and daughters would all have to breastfeed Muhammad during that time, and then he would be a mahram.
Yeah.
Got
Makes
that?
sense.
Tarun, here we go. Look, instantly, I even see vegan right on there. I hope you guys will understand. We have a great relationship of jokes of me being vegan. I hope you guys will not discard me for this. Just want the best.
I don't care about your vegan super chat.
Vegan, yes. Everyone just has to eat wheatgrass soup, wheatgrass kebabs, wheatgrass and wheatgrass sauce. Not good for you, dude. Human beings are apex predators. That's what we are. Not in the sense that like Daniel Hikikachu or Muhammad are predators, but in the sense of like hunting down other things and eating them. Hope y'all have a blessed... What's up?
Or Andrew Tate.
Or Andrew Tate. Hope y'all have a blessed rest of your night. Stellar content. As always, Jesus is Lord and Savior. That's true.
Amen.
David,
Amen.
David, you are the funniest psychopath I know. Yeah, psychopaths are always hilarious. Going to send this to my ex-boss. He's young, Christian background, Middle Eastern, thinks Israel's committing geocide. Trying to show him the truth. It's actually better to. Not all comments will go through if you're posting that word, so it's actually good to spell it in different ways and so on.
But is genocide like killing the world or
killing the
something
entire
like
world? Yep. Yeah, Viking Crusader. I don't know if you're talking about sending them this live stream or the original video. I would recommend sending the original video to them.
I would recommend that as well.
Yeah, it's an hour and a half. Super dope stuff. Powerful stuff. And everyone who's watching, by the way, you got a lot of people with a lot of crazy ideas supporting a lot of terrorists and don't even realize it because they're stupid. So you have to inform people. So find some good videos and share them. Same people supporting Hamas rage against capitalism. That is true. Yeah, notice who unites. The communists, the socialists, the jihadis all constantly end up on the same side of things. Hamas leaders watching the war from Qatar while eating champagne and caviar. Yeah, they're probably drinking champagne, but... Leb priest's followers have now anathematized me for condemning Islam. It is apparently the unforgivable sin to support Israel, as a Lebanese Christian Middle Eastern should be ashamed. Buffoonery. You hear this, AP?
I'm not sure what kind of Lebanese you're talking to. I have found that the Maronites are pretty based usually. which just makes me think again. Maybe it's the Catholics are just the good ones. I don't know, but so the Maronites are usually pretty good. I know that some others in Lebanon, which are the minority, might not be very, very good.
Yeah, Abraham, just tell this priest that there's a new Orthodox Pope.
Yeah.
His name is AP, and he's willing to debate. So say that. Say, hey, why don't you have a debate with the apostate prophet and watch him tremble in fear?
Let him debate me.
Yep. Many of those supporting Hamas would rage against capitalism, but the people getting their support are exploiting capitalism to get rich. Yeah. Uh-huh. I'm nervous for my confession this week. It's been a very long time. What would you recommend? Lord be with you. Do you have any recommendations, AP?
Well, that's my confession this week.
Hey, do you Orthodox dudes have that thing where you go to confession booth?
No, in Orthodoxy you also have confession, but it goes differently. It's not the same way as in Catholicism.
Do you go to a priest to confess?
You go to a priest, but I haven't really done it yet. I'm supposed to do it for the first time.
I hope that priest has a lot of free time on his hands.
But I think there is a difference in Catholicism you're supposed to sit down in a booth and talk to the priest and so on, whereas in Orthodoxy, I think as far as I understand it, you basically have your priest in your presence while speaking basically to God or something like that.
Yeah. The command in the Bible is confess your sins to one another. So I would generally take that as like, keep in mind, you have to figure out a way to do it. So, there are different ways to do it, confessing it to a priest and so on. But the general idea, as far as the Bible's concerned, is accountability really, really helps. If you're struggling with some sin, let's suppose you're looking at porn or something like that, you don't know what to do with it. You don't know what to do about it. You can't resist. Accountability is a big issue. So whether you're talking to some leader or something like that, even talking to like one of your good Christian friends and so on, hey, man, I have this problem. Can we talk about it? And then having someone with whom you are accountable can help you deal with things. Because then that person, you're going to have to be talking to that person about it. Because that person's going to ask, hey, how you doing, man? How you doing with that problem you were dealing with? So yeah, whether you are Catholic, Orthodox, Protestant, whatever, make sure you are accountable to someone.
Yeah. I found that on one occasion, without being a formal confession, just going to my priest there and telling him about, I did this thing wrongly and want to tell you that. I wasn't even thinking of it in a sense of confession, but I went up to him because I was feeling very, very bad after the service and told him, and he was like, thank you for confessing, he said, and may God forgive your sins. And I felt so good afterwards. It's like such a relief, actually. I don't know. But it also teaches accountability, and instead of burying it inside you and just not doing anything about it or trying to deal with it on your own, it really doesn't help. Instead of this, confessing, having somebody respond to it, and then thereby actually working on it really is incredibly helpful.
Rory here says, I'm accountable before the Lord Jesus Christ. Yes, but in the Bible you're told, confess your sins to one another.
Yes.
Why? It is, matter of fact, you have other people here pointing out, Fat Reformed Baptist says, accountability is necessary. I guarantee you, Rory, if you actually went to studies and so on of people who are trying to deal with their issues just by themselves versus people who are accountable to other people, the people who are accountable to other people would do massively better. And so the problem that you have in the world is everyone now is worried about embarrassing themselves. Like, hey, I'm going to be embarrassed if I tell my friend or my priest or whoever that I'm struggling with this problem, whatever it may be, struggling with drinking or gambling or whatever. If I tell someone about this, that I can't stop myself from doing this thing, I'm going to look like, I'm messed up, and that's going to bring shame on me and stuff. So I'll just try and deal with it myself. When, if you seriously want to deal with the problem, you are much more likely to be successful in dealing with the problem by being accountable to other people who can help you. And so again, yeah, of course you're accountable to God. Of course you're accountable to Jesus. Obviously. But those same scriptures tell you to be accountable to other people. And here, Lege Math I Gay On says, by Moses, he is on to us. We are attempting genocide in the name of the Schofield Bible. That's true. That's true. All right, let's watch just a little more of this. Let's see what happens.
And we
my
have
wife
seen,
is pointing out.
What?
My wife is pointing out. Back in the early days of the church, the members used to confess to each other in front of the congregation.
Yeah.
So
that's
how it was.
Yeah, I found out about this. And what's weird is when I got out of prison, it was significantly harder to live a straight and narrow Christian life than it was in prison, even though you're surrounded by all sorts of nonsense and constant like fighting and so on. And I had to figure out why that was. Why was it harder to live as a Christian and to obey Jesus on the outside than it was on the inside? At first I was just thinking, well, there's so much more temptation out there, compared to, you have so much more ability to do so many more messed up things outside compared to when you're in prison and stuff. First, I just thought it was that. Over time, I realized first it was, I was listening to Gary Habermas, and he was breaking down the disciplines of being a Christian. So disciplines, these are, we think of discipline as like, punishing someone or something like that. But disciplines like things that make you a disciple. The disciplines that make you a disciple. When we talk about the Christian disciplines today, like what are the things that you're supposed to do as a Christian? Habermas is pointing out, you get a list of like 4 or 5 things, prayer, Bible study, fellowship with other believers. You occasionally get something like fasting or something like that, but it's like 4 or 5 things. And he pointed out that in the early church, it was more like about a dozen things. And then there were still more. And what was interesting when he brought that up, and he pointed out Dallas Willard has a book, Robert Foster has books on this and so on. That in the early church, it was a bunch of things. What was interesting to me was once he pointed that out, the same things that were disciplines in the early church, you see them right in the Bible. You see them straight out of the Bible. And they were things that were sort of part of the structure of prison. So again, disciplines of being a Christian now, even if for people who talk about being a Christian, prayer, Bible study, these kinds of things, fellowship with other believers, maybe fasting, things like that. In the early church, it would be things like simplicity. Simplicity. Make sure you're living as simple a life as possible. Don't fill up your life with tons of unimportant stuff that distracts you from things that are more important. So keep a simple life. Solitude. Solitude doesn't mean go and live as a monk, but it means you need periods where you're just by yourself. And again, think about it. You see Jesus doing this in the Bible. He would go off to a mountain. He would go off to a mountain at night and so on, to be separate from everyone else. And so you kind of see these things. So anyway, the point was you're supposed to have times when, guys, I'm going away for a day, just by myself, just me and God. I'm going to be away from, I don't want to talk to anyone. I want complete silence. Silence was another one. You would have times when I'm completely quiet. I'm just going to be completely quiet. I want no noise. And so these were features of the early church, and Christians kind of lost them over time. But one of the disciplines was accountability. Accountability. You are confessing your sins to one another. Anyway, the point of all that was we've lost a lot over time that was once considered essential to healthy Christian living. And then
Speak for yourself.
We wonder why everything is all screwed up in the world.
Speak for yourself.
No, you speak for yourself. Hang on. Let's see. And here we have Michelle Marie says, regarding confession, there is a saying that is used in the psychiatric world and Alcoholics Anonymous that says you're only as sick as your secrets. Dang. Matter of fact, I was thinking about AA. Notice they go in there and they talk about their issues to one another, and they do massively better. There have been studies on this. I remember reading about them in a book on habit formation years ago. But the people in AA do massively better. Same thing with NA. They do massively better. They're much more successful in dealing with what they're struggling with than people who try to deal with it themselves. How did we even get on this topic? I don't even remember. Oh,
I don't know.
confession stuff came up. Yeah, all right.
And death.
We have seen such movements throughout history. We have seen them, but most of the world has forgotten about them. And I would argue that Israel, to a great extent, forgot about them until 6:30 in the morning on October the 7th, 2023.
Possessed by the spirit of Cain.
Yes.
And that accounts for some of the anti-Semitism too. So let me run something by you. I want to flip to how the world turned. So it is the case that when people develop post-traumatic stress disorder, they relatively rarely develop it in response to a tragedy, even if it's a painful tragedy. They tend to develop it, one risk factor is being naive. Seeing the world through rose-colored glasses, let's say, assuming goodwill on everyone's part, including your own, and then encountering a situation, sometimes a situation that you're deeply involved in, where malevolence raises its head. The West is very sheltered and I would say blind to malevolence, blind to its existence. In the academic realm, there's no discussion of good and evil. Evil is an archaic term. And malevolence...
Hey, that's interesting. Have you ever heard that before?
What is?
He was talking about PTSD, right? He said that people tend to get PTSD because they don't think things can be that bad. And then they're exposed to how things really are. And that messes them up. It's like they were just completely psychologically unprepared. So the idea is if you actually understood, no, this is how messed up people are. And this is the screwed up stuff they do.
I do very well know that, and I also became very well aware of that, and I also very well experienced that. You wouldn't understand because you're a psychopath, but yeah, it's pretty messed up, man.
The world's a dangerous place. I'm aware of that.
Is a consequence of trauma, right? A consequence of privation. And that's simply not the case.
No. I kind of cut it off because I paused him mid-word, but he was saying malevolence. We in the West, people in the West tend to think, especially at the academic level and so on, malevolence is a sign that something wrong happened to you, and that's what turned you into that. And so, you were traumatized somehow. That's why you're bad. And therefore, we just need to be extremely nice to you, and then you'll change, right? That's the idea of how people thought they're going to deal with jihadis. Well, they've been mistreated by so many people, and that's why they're doing this. And so if we just, be extremely nice to them and praise their religion and so on, their hearts will melt. And then, it's not how the real world works.
And it's now, I read a book a while back, and I don't remember which one it was, unfortunately, but it described the erasure of the Byzantine Empire from the Western imagination. I was a relatively old person before I really had any sense at all of the extent of the Byzantine Empire or the catastrophe of its demolition. And the author of this particular book believed that the defeat of the Byzantine Empire by the Islamic world, and maybe by the psychopaths of the Islamic world, was...
Can you go 5 seconds without calling someone a psychopath, Peterson?
Which would just be the Islamic world.
You're giving people a bad name, man.
So traumatic to the West that we just erased it from our historical memory. And then it seems to me, Douglas, that something like that is going on right now.
Yes.
I mean, let's talk about the universities for a moment. Now, there's a fair bit of pathology in...
We'll let them talk about the universities, and we'll call it a day. On the issue, because people are still, a bunch of people are interested in the accountability thing. I never sort of wrapped up that thought that, hey, you had...
Constantinople will be taken back!
That's true.
Sorry.
That's true.
Sorry, I had to say that.
I know. You can just blurt that out anytime you want, because that's like the rallying call. But so accountability. Didn't know what happened. I didn't understand what the difference between prison and life outside of prison was, and why it was actually harder to live as a committed Christian on the outside than it was where in prison it was just comparatively like really, really easy. It's just very, okay, I'm a Christian now. I spend my day reading the Bible and so on. Anyway, I just thought there's so many more distractions on the outside. And that's part of it, right? But that's interfering with simplicity. Remember, simplicity is one of the early Christian disciplines. And you see it all, once you're aware of it, you see it all over the Bible, the emphasis on simplicity. But think about that. Prison. There's lots of stuff going on. There's lots of people wanting to, you're surrounded by, people who committed various crimes. Life is very simple. You wake up, guess what? You get waken up by the guard. The guard is going to wake you up for count time and so on. And then, throughout the day, you have everything, your entire day is already planned out for you. Here's the times when you have to be there for count time. Here's your job you do. Here's the free time you have. Here's when you go to the rec yard and lift weights and so on. It's all right there. It's very simple, over and over and over again. Accountability. You are surrounded by your Christian brothers in prison. You're always within eyeshot of Christians. You're always. So accountability to your fellow Christians who are there, it's built into the system. There are all these things that are built into the system that are basically components of Christian living in the early church. And they're sort of imposed on you. And then you get out and that's all stripped away. And it's like, wait, what's going on? My entire framework for living and so on has radically altered. Anyway, interesting stuff. Should make a video about that one day. Might be cool. Anyway.
Universities a fair bit. It's like top to bottom. They're absolutely incorrigible as far as I'm concerned, especially the Ivy Leagues. They should be ashamed of themselves. They should be deprived of all funding as far as I'm concerned. In any case, the protests that emerged there and all across the world, you detail out, and with some great sadness and amazement. But I think part of it is that it's not within the purview of the people who are protesting to replace their theory that the victims are uprising with the notion that a malevolent cult of death that worships sadistic suffering and annihilation exists.
Mm-hmm.
It's too far outside their worldview. Now, there's more to it than that, because Iran is, you saw that the Ayatollah, this is the most amazing thing.
It is fun. It's such a simple idea. Guys, there are people and ideologies that are way worse than you think, and they're evil. No, that can't be. Anything that's bad is just because they've been mistreated, because people are so good. And Islam is so good because, any religion, well, actually Islam is the only good religion. Any religion is good except Christianity and so on. These are the ideas in the Western elite.
Himself congratulated the American universities, or the universities of the UK for that matter, too.
He congratulated the Western students for joining the anti-colonial struggle. Not mentioning to the students that, of course, Ayatollah Khamenei, had ordered the gunning down of their contemporaries across the streets of Tehran in 2009, and on many other occasions.
A minor issue.
But when Iranian students come out on the streets to protest against the actual oppression of the Islamic Revolutionary government in Tehran, Ayatollah Khamenei, who congratulates the Western students for uprising, shoots the students who uprise in Iran. But that's a detail.
Yes, it's an ignorable detail, clearly.
We'll go ahead and this conversation goes on. There's a link to the full interview in the description box. But just think about that point right there, that you've got the mullahs of Iran cheering on the student protesters at Western universities. Yeah, you're doing a great job. You're such wonderful people. Yes, stand up against oppression. Why? Because they're protesting against Jews and Israel. Meanwhile, you've got protesters in Iran who are actually just want basic human rights and freedoms. And the same regime that is cheering on student protesters in New York is killing protesters and raping and everything else in Iran. And people still take it seriously. Yay, the mullahs are on our side. You stupid idiots. My goodness. Not Such says, are there that many Christians in prison? Yeah, I mean, they obviously weren't committed Christians. I mean, they can be, because keep in mind, you can be like the best person in your neighborhood your entire life and screw up for 5 seconds, do something bad for 5 seconds, and you end up in prison, right? People do messed up things. So you can have someone who's just a good Christian and does something bad at one time. Generally, it's people who, they were kind of loosely Christian when they grew up and they got to prison, and now they have time to think about things more. And hey, look at the trajectory of my life, where my decisions have gotten me. I need to change. And so you get some people, and then they start, they're going to church and reading their Bible and stuff. And then of course you have the fakes they get locked up, and then they're, I'll start praying now for God to get me out of this situation and so on. But they don't really take it seriously, and you can tell because they're not really committed. They're just hoping that God gets them out of the situation, something like that. So anyway, you got to mix. But yeah, plenty of Christians in prison. All right, AP, any final thoughts on any of this stuff? Are you listening to something else, AP, or are you asleep?
No, I'm right here. I'm listening to you.
Are you meditating?
Yeah.
Shout out to AP from his Armenian neighbor. I didn't know bro was Christian.
Hey, what's up?
How could someone not know AP's Christian? What do you think he is, an atheist or an agnostic?
Ridiculous.
You think he's still a Muslim?
Ridiculous.
Silliness. Yeah, guys. So, as we pointed out, still lots of, what sucks? Because I said I was about to make a video responding to Andrew Wilson's extremely terrible argument, and I mentioned that I was watching a Sam Harris interview where he was talking about how his view of Israel changed and so on after October 7th. So I wanted to make a video about that as well. And I'm sitting there thinking, why am I talking about this? Because as soon as I post a response to Andrew Wilson, it's going to be, David, why are you so obsessed with Israel? It's because of you guys, man. It's because look around at the world. Look around at what people are saying. There's a time where you got to actually stand up against some really, really dumb ideas. Anyway, the point was, guys, this doesn't fall just to AP to respond to dumb ideas or to Jordan Peterson or to Douglas Murray. The biggest part of the work is people going around, sharing stuff, having discussions with their friends, having discussions online or in person and so on, and exposing bad ideas. So that task falls to everyone here. So you see this interview with Jordan Peterson. Take that and share it, because there's lots of awesome, interesting stuff in here. What are you saying, AP?
That's the funny thing. People are doing this whole thing like, why are you so obsessed with Israel? Why are you so obsessed with Jews? So I've always been very sympathetic to Jews and very sympathetic to Israel, but I never felt the need to talk as much about these things as in these last 2 years. And the reason is simply that Israel is brutally under attack, and that there's a relentless attack on both Israel and on Jews, and I feel the need to stand up where I can. And I know that this is not the very popular thing to do right now. In fact, it's become very, very funny, because it was actually in our circles, it was like a given. It was like the normal thing years ago to stand up and stand with Jews and Israel and all that. Over the last 2 years, things took a very, very disturbing turn, and especially now, it would of course be very, very cool for us to become anti-Israel, but especially now is the time to be supportive. So, because people go on very, very disgusting attacks against Israel and against Jews, and they shan't get away with it.
And every generation that comes along looks back two or three generations earlier and says, oh my goodness, how did they let that happen?
Yeah.
How did they not stand against that more? How did they just sit back and not scream and shout from the rooftops and do everything they could to stop that? The reason is because when you're in the middle of it, you got all these people who tell you you're the horrible person if you have a problem with what's going on.
No, you.
And people fall for that. People fall for that. So guys, don't fall for it. Don't
Magic Jew blood, magic Jew blood, magic Jew blood.
There are lots of horrible people doing horrible things with horrible ideas, and they're spreading them rapidly. And the response needs to be responding with good ideas.
I think that was the best argument that Andrew Wilson made during the debate was magic Jew blood.
That's what he said. Oh, there's no magic Jew blood. I still see that all the time, and I still see it over and over again in the chat. So
I was thinking recently, I can't wait to finally get baptized in the Orthodox Church, so I can start drinking magic Jew blood on Sundays. You know,
that is that was, dude. It was crazy that he's sitting there mocking the idea, and you keep quoting the Bible, and he's mocking it, and all his fans are cheering every time he mocks it, and you keep going. You're mocking the Bible here. You're mocking the Bible here. You're not mocking me. You're mocking the Bible. And he just kept rolling with it. And so did all his fans. And his fans kept cheering for him.
Paul literally says that they are beloved for the sake of their ancestors. So it is Paul literally saying that they are beloved because of their blood. Because of their descent.
Oh, AP Fiddle talking about magic Jew blood. What an idiot. What an idiot.
Every single time that he said that he was mocking the Bible, he was mocking St. Paul. So
yeah, it was wild.
Wild stuff.
All right, guys. So tomorrow, I think I'm going to be on Thaddeus's channel at 5 p.m. Eastern time to go through some of the Islamic dilemma stuff, responding to some of the latest Islamic dilemma stuff. And after that, 8 o'clock p.m., be live with Robert Spencer. I think I'll have a video out in the morning, probably the Sam Harris video. Wanted to make a video about Sam Harris. Why? Because Sam Harris and we have our differences on a lot of things. So when he says something and it's like, oh, he thinks exactly the same as I do on that issue, it's good to point out for the sake of harmony and so on.
You see?
Let's see. Jesus is a myth, but reality is mythical. What?
Okay.
Anything you want to say, AP?
No.
You don't want to tell people to convert to Islam because it's based?
No, stay away from Islam, stay away from death cults.
But that's kind of the same thing, right?
Yeah. Here's Douglas Murray's book once again on democracies and death cults, and he totally did not pay me to promote this, and to put it right here in the back of my screen. Would totally recommend it. It's a little bit heavy, although it's very short. So definitely worth reading. And as always, stay away from Islam and consider Christianity.
Indeed. And so, guys, be sure to finish watching that entire interview because it's awesome stuff. Watch that. Share that with other people because both these guys now have tons and tons of enemies, not only on the left, but also on the right because they've managed to offend lots of people. And so, yeah, share the video. And if you're much of a reader nowadays, or even if you're not much of a reader, but you can still endure a 200-page book, check out Douglas Murray's new book. And maybe we'll both read it and do a little review. We'll see what happens. You can join the Orthodox, the Eastern Orthodox Protestant Brotherhood Book of the Month Club.
Powerful. And hit me up if you are in Jamaica.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Catch y'all next time.